Township Board of Supervisors, November 15th, 2011. We're going to start, as we always do, with the salute to the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, thank you. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zepka?
Here.
Mrs. Wislowski? Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dents?
Here.
Mr. Snipes?
Here.
And we did receive, I guess, information. Mrs. Wislowski is going to be late. All right, we're going to start with agenda item number 1, Learning Experience Final Land Development. Mr. Gray?
Yes, this is Learning Experience Final Land Development. They are located at 8829 New Falls Road, tax map parcel 13-19-218 and 219. Tonight representing the applicant is Mr. Kurt Schaefer.
Good evening.
Evening.
We received preliminary approval from this board last February and final approval from the Planning Commission last August. At that point, we were scheduled to be on the agenda a couple of times previous to this meeting, but there were certain traffic issues that were raised that needed to be resolved. I believe they all have been resolved by virtue of the TPD letter of November 11th, which contains 7 items. 3 through 7 are will complies. Items 1 and 2 were the items that really required some fairly intense discussions in the past 2 weeks. Basically put in item 1, TPD had been asking for an 8-foot wide shoulder, and the plan now shows an 8-foot wide shoulder on New Falls Road, east of the easternmost intersection and the innermost access drive, rather, and a 4-foot wide shoulder on the west side of the site. This is now a waiver item under section 191.31A as it relates only to the west side of the site. You may call it a partial waiver, or you may call it a waiver, but that's really where we stand. As to item 2, there had been some issues with respect to the grade of the driveway at 8%, where the saldo maximum was at 5%. This is likewise a waiver request recommended both by the TPD and the Planning Commission. Its will complies with respect to the site grading, but the grades do not comply with PennDOT, so there's going to be a slight waiver request there. But as I said, everything else is a will comply with those 2 waiver requests.
Okay. All right, if you could just briefly remind people what exactly we're looking at in terms of this project. Obviously, it's preschool. This is you have.
This is at 8829 New Falls Road. The project basically calls for demoing everything that's on the site right now. A strong breeze could probably demo most of what's on the site right now. And then the applicant proposes to construct an 11,000 square foot daycare center, which would be operated by the entity known as the Learning Experience. We had a fairly full rendition of what the Learning Experience does last February before this board. I'll try to briefly summarize that for everyone else who is here. In essence, this will be, as I said, an 11,000 square foot daycare center. The daycare center will probably be licensed for about 180 children, although 180 children never attend. The Learning Experience does not operate at full capacity. They prefer to operate at about 80% capacity, the theory being that when the 4-year-old becomes 5 years old and goes into that age group, they want to have the room there available for the children. There is no real AM and PM rush here. Most of the pickups and drop-offs occur over about a 3-hour time period. The employees will be instructed to park in the far parking lot away from the front of the building, and the front of the building will be designated as pickup and drop-off for parents and the children. The parents will walk their children into the school, and there's a safe school system that goes into effect. According to Learning Experience history, about 20% of the students show up with a sibling. So it's not one student, one car type of an arrangement. They have about 20 teachers on staff, although not all of them are there at the same time. They stagger the teachers as they stagger the students so that they have the right coverage, but they don't have to have teachers there if they're not really needed. There is no bus service, there's no nighttime, there's no weekends. It's fairly standard, straightforward. I think it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something like that, hours of operation. They don't have a kitchen. They don't do any cooking facilities. There'll certainly be a microwave and a refrigerator. But they do not need hot food deliveries. They don't get very many deliveries at all, quite frankly. Nothing that has to come in a large truck, small delivery truck, like a Office Max size truck or a panel truck is pretty much basically what they get. We have agreed on the plan to have deliveries and trash pickup staged after hours. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell as to how the learning experience operates their facilities.
Okay. All right, just to review, there are two waivers you're requesting. One, 19131A, requiring the driveway radius returns must be located 24 feet from the center line, and 19136D, regarding the maximum grade of 5%.
Correct.
Okay. All right, comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
Thank you. Frankly, I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not saying that the center isn't needed in the area, but what's going to happen with the traffic there, I think, is going to be a real problem. We're changing some of the traffic pattern on a road that has a lot of traffic at different times of the day. The setback, and I believe what's going into the what's going to be the parking lot or the drop-off area, at times can actually say back out onto the road. Now we're allowing a shorter shoulder. True, it's going to be on the opposite side, but if it's going to be 4 foot, other than a smart car, I don't know anything that's out there that's 4 foot wide. So I'm looking at possibly blocking traffic. You've got the school up the street, which between school buses and traffic, you've got the little shopping center across the street, which people are going to be, it's not exactly across the street, but people exiting and entering. I think at the best we're looking at congestion, whether it's for the neighbors right in the area. You have other facilities that are, well, I guess the closest one is in Lawrenceville on Quaker Bridge Road. Now, Quaker Bridge Road there is we'll say it's 2 lanes in each direction, turning lane in the center. It's a high traffic area, but your setback and the amount of drop-off or parking area that you have is quite a bit larger. Same thing on West Windsor, which it's New Jersey, but it's probably only about 11 miles from here. It's on a wide road, high-density road, but the setback is further. You're not going to get 2 or 3 people stacked up and then somebody else turning in and not wanting to block somebody and then being sticking out onto the road possibly, or other people wanting to come in and sitting there till there's clearance. And not everybody's going to pull into the parking slots to drop their children off. The one in Hopewell, again, it is New Jersey, but it's on Denone Road, which is, there's nothing there. There is houses, but it's a very low traffic area, and that probably has the smallest amount of drop off. I know this is the final part of it, and I'm pretty sure this is going to go through, but I just think that the traffic part is at times is going to turn into a real debacle in there. And personally, I would have liked to see it, and I know you want to own the property. I would like to see the school that's right down the street that's not being used anymore, have taken that over, the facilities. And yes, it's not brand new, and you might not have been able to actually own the facility, but the parking area and the facilities in there, you could probably have expanded a lot further. But that's my thoughts on it. That's my criticism. Like I said, I'm not a fan of this. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Snipes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wondering, Jim Sullivan, our engineer, has any comment on the 2 waivers that are requested?
I have no objection to either of the waivers. and I don't believe Mr. Baker does either.
And Mr. Baker from our traffic engineers. Mr. Baker, do you have any concerns about the two waivers being discussed here?
No, I don't.
No, he says no, he does not.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
Thank you. No, they've been here several times, and we gave them a few issues that we brought up, and they've met everything we asked them to do, and I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
I did have one last thing, Mr. Chairman. Any improvement over what's there now is obviously something the township would look for, so I think we're moving in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, and I absolutely, I mean, I hear Mr. Zupka's concern. I think it was a concern that we all had. I know he still has, but I think it was about a year ago when we had the applicant here, maybe last December, might have been last November, and we asked you to go back and do a traffic study. And it was a pretty extensive traffic study.
Yes, I think I have the notes of the February 15th meeting. I think that's when we came and we reported the results of the traffic study
Right.
with Andy Heinrich and a representative from the Learning Experience. I don't think Mr. Zupka was at that meeting. Let me try to address some of his concerns with respect to that. What we did is we tried to find a site that was comparable, that the Learning Experience had up and running, comparable to this site. We found a standalone 11,000 square foot building in New Jersey that was pretty much right on with this. We did a second traffic study doing counts and stacking, and I appreciate your concerns, and all I can tell you is that it does work. The Learning Experience knows what they need, and they're not going to enter into a facility if it's going to be a problem for parents who are going to say, well, I'm not going to send my child here. So while I do appreciate your concerns, there was a fairly comprehensive traffic study that tried to address those issues, and I think it did.
I think one of the issues, too, that you mentioned earlier about drop-offs and pickups is, unlike a normal school, this facility doesn't have, sort of the start time that an elementary school would have, where every kid has to be there by, 8:45 or something like that. And then every kid gets picked up between 3:40 and 3:50, or it's really, you don't have that rush of traffic in the morning, rush of traffic. It really is staggered. People drop off their kids on the way to work. It could be 7:30, it could be 8:30, it could be, 8:45. They pick them up, if they're only there half a day. They could be there, at other times. So,
yes.
But
there's a 3-hour window in the morning and a 3-hour window in the afternoon that that Learning Experience considers pickup and drop-off times. It's spread out that far.
Right. But like I said, I appreciate your concern, Mr. Zupka. I do, and I do hear it. But it was one of the reasons why we had them do a study, and I was curious to see the results, and I was pretty satisfied with how thorough their study was and with the results. The only other question I had was, I know there's been some confusion because I think it was just bad timing, maybe not bad timing, but just coincidental timing. There was a water tower adjacent to the property you're buying that was coming down around the time you were coming here.
We had heard that. I don't know if that's actually been confirmed, but we had heard very early on that that tower was coming down.
Right, and it's just to clarify, because some people were saying the reason the tower came down was because you had purchased that property.
No.
Correct. I knew that, but that was something that people said, oh, well, that's why they brought the water tower down, is because that school was going in. Now, this school is actually located on the side of and in front of where that tower was. The property the tower was on is actually located on a separate piece.
That's correct. We have nothing to do with that parcel.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, we've heard from engineers and also from board members. Are the public comment? Let's see, one hand, or motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Pardon me, sir.
I'll be very brief because I've spoken in favor of this project, as you know, several times. But let me see if I can alleviate some of your concerns, Mr. Supka. The traffic dilemma that you think is going to be there, I really think is it's imaginary. I spent a lot of time on New Falls Road for different purposes, and I can tell you that the times I spent there would be 2:30 when Pennsbury School gets out, and the exit on their parking lot on New Falls Road. It's very smooth. Most of the traffic coming out of Pennsbury is going down Penn Valley Road. There's very little traffic coming up and down New Falls Road. St. Joseph School, which was there, is now closed. I could tell you that that's my particular parish, and when they have Mass, we have about 800 cars going in and exiting from there. There's no problem on New Falls Road, and I don't anticipate any traffic problems. But I'll give you one area where you would think there'd be a traffic problem. There isn't. There is a facility in Trenton Woodburn Road, and the traffic there is unbelievable. And they also have a traffic light there. Works for them, it'll work for us, and I'm looking forward to this board welcoming this addition that we need here on New Falls Road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment needed? I see no hands. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I actually do have one more question, sorry. I have the fire marshal's letter from October 7th, 2011. I don't know if you have a copy of that or not.
I don't believe I do.
Okay, you're welcome to have this one. I just want to let you get a chance to read it and if you have any comments or concerns. Mr. Gray, what resolution would this be? 11?
21.
Okay. Thank you. Is that all right? Or-
That's certainly acceptable.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay,
Mr. Harvey, if I may?
Yes,
Very
sorry.
briefly. Mr. Schaefer, you've received the copy of the resolution that I believe they were making some edits on it up until sometime today. You received
Yes.
a copy of the resolution?
Yes, I've seen it. Thank
You
you.
had the opportunity to review the resolution?
Yes, I have.
And it is acceptable to you and your client, and you will comply in all respects to what is in the resolution?
Mr.
Yes,
Clark?
we shall.
Microphone.
I'm done now, so.
All right. Okay. All right, so we've heard from board professionals as well as from the public. We're looking at Resolution 2011-21, which would be final land development for the Learning Experience 8829 New Falls Road, granting the two aforementioned variances, or not variances. Yeah, waivers, sorry. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2011- or pass 2011-21?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
No.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, the second item on our agenda is the 2012 budget presentation, which is authorization to advertise. Important to note, we are not adopting the budget this evening. We are advertising the budget. We are basically putting out for the public to see. The board will make the motion to authorize the advertisement of this, at which point members of the public can pick up the budget and look at it on their own. It'll also be available on the website. And then at a future meeting, most likely in December, well, definitely in December, we will adopt the budget. Thank you, Mr. Baker. So this is a presentation. Mr. Gray is here, as well as our Finance Director, Mrs. Rukoff. Mr. Gray?
Yes, thank you. Over the last several weeks, the Township Administration has been working to prepare the 2012 budget. Tonight, we would like to present this to you. Here tonight is Finance Director Betsy Rukoff.
Oh, give the background.
One more on? Sorry.
Again. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to present for your review the proposed budget for 2012. The proposed tax rate for 2012 is 7.22 mils. That's the same rate as was in 2011. There is no tax increase proposed for Falls Township's residents. This rate remains the lowest tax millage rate in the past 20 years. 7 tax funds make up the total millage rate charged to township residents. The general fund is the chief operating fund of the township at 2.85 mils. The street lighting fund is used to account for the cost of electricity, maintenance of the highway and street lights located in the township at 1 mil. The Fire Protection Fund helps support our local fire companies at 1.25 mils. Fire Hydrant Fund is restricted to expenditures for the maintenance and repair of fire hydrants within the township at .22 mils. Our Parks and Recreation Fund is restricted to the development of recreational programs and our township parks at 1.26 mils. The Fallsington Library Fund helps support our local library at .14 mils. And the Rescue Squad Fund helps to support our local rescue squads at ½ mil. That brings our total millage to 7.22. These rates have remained the same, as you can see here, since 2010. They actually have been the same since the 2008 budget was passed. For every tax dollar paid in 2011, only 4 cents was received by Falls Township. The balance was collected by the County of Bucks and the Pennsbury School District. Residents' tax dollars are used to provide a full range of municipal services, including police and fire protection, construction and maintenance of streets and storm sewers, recycling, residential solid waste pickup, zoning regulations, building inspections, parks and recreational activities, and the maintenance and replacement of streetlights. Contributions to fire companies, rescue squads, and the library that serve Falls Township residents are also funded through these real estate tax dollars. What do all those services cost our taxpayers? Based on an assessment of $30,000, a Falls Township resident can expect to pay $216.60. This is by far the lowest cost of our neighboring municipalities. Some highlights of the 2012 proposed budget. 2012 revenues include a reliance by the general fund on the host community fees of $9 million, reliance by the general fund on resource recovery fees of $950,000, some additional revenue projections for 2012. We expect to receive $610,000 in cable TV franchise fees, $350,000 in real estate transfer taxes, $350,000 in building, electrical, and fire permits, and $438,400 in state pension system assistance. Budgeted expenditures from the general fund total $15,885,813. 59% of that, or $9.4 million, is used to provide police services to our community. Some 2012 proposed capital projects are the 2012 road reconstruction. This project's budgeted at a total cost of $5,994,000. 2012's road program calls for the full-depth reconstruction of 11 roads in the Yardley Farms and Hedgerow Woods sections of Falls Township. They are Winding Way, Louise Drive, Kent Avenue, Paul Road, Mark Drive, Rita Drive, Hedgerow Drive, Lyons Drive, Midway Drive, Hedgerow Turn, and Hilltop Drive. The 2012 road program also includes the milling and overlay of 8 township roads, including West Tyburn Road, Main Street, Williamson Avenue, Old Locust Street, Lacrosse Street, Headley Place, Hillside Lane, and Valley Road. Our Public Works Department anticipates the completion of additional milling and overlay projects on the 200 block of Andover Road and the Nottingham Pond roadway at a projected cost of $35,000. $374,141 has been budgeted for various police purchases. These include the purchase and training of a new police canine, computer equipment, firearms training and supplies, and various other equipment. $1 million has been budgeted toward the replacement of all Motorola radios to comply with a federal mandate. In a move to free up radio bandwidth and allow room for new channels, the FCC handed down a mandate in 2006 that will impact public safety and business radio systems across the nation. The size of channel space will be cut in half on the radio dial, One channel will cover a range of 12.5 kilohertz. This is otherwise known as the narrow banding mandate. The FCC mandates that any equipment that is not capable of operating on channels of 12.5 kilohertz or less will need to be replaced. For the Falls Township Community Park, $302,000 has been budgeted for the reconstruction of 2 soccer fields and the replacement of trees next to the skate park. The tennis courts at Penns Grant Park are also planned for replacement at an estimated cost of $150,000. $90,000 has been set aside for the continued conversion of all township streetlights to LED. Mercury vapor lights will no longer be available after 2012. The Public Works Department is in need of a new backhoe for storm events and emergencies. $110,000 has been budgeted for this purchase. An additional $75,000 has been budgeted for Public Works equipment, including the replacement of 2 older zero-turn mowers, a 1994 chipper, and a 1994 mower trailer. $30,000 has been budgeted to modernize the camera system currently in place in and around the building. The new system would be installed in a modular nature, allowing all wiring, switches, and mountings to be reused should any building renovations take place in the future. Based on the proposed budget, a total of $29,935,673 is projected to be spent in the year 2012. The budget schedule for 2012 includes tonight's discussion of the 2012 budget, advertisement of the budget on November 21st, additional budget discussions from November 15th to December 20th, public inspection of the proposed budget from November 21st through December 20th, and adoption of the 2012 budget at the December 20th Board of Supervisors meeting. That concludes our presentation of the 2012 proposed budget.
Okay. First, I guess on behalf of the board, I'm sure this will be repeated. I want to thank Mrs. Rukoff and Mr. Gray and all the department heads who worked very hard to put this together. This is a process that starts a few months ago, where department heads, Public Works, Finance, Park and Recreation, Police Department, et cetera, put together essentially what their needs are for the upcoming year. They then send that information to Mrs. Rukoff and Mr. Gray, and they begin to sort of see what can be done and what can't be done. Board members obviously also have a say in terms of what things need to move forward. We'll turn over to board members for comments and questions, and we'll have some public comment, remembering that this is just advertising. We're not adopting this tonight. This is a standard procedure, as you saw the next to last slide. We advertise first. People get a chance to take a look at it. Again, Mr. Gray, where will this be available for people to look at the budget if they want to take a look themselves?
We'll have it here at the Township Building. It'll be on our Township website at the Fallsington Library, so there will be several locations for this.
Okay. All right, so those locations, like I said, probably easiest thing to do is take a look at on your computer at home, and then you can come back at any of the meetings really, but the December 20th meeting is when we're planning on adopting a budget. And so obviously we'll have a lot of comments and questions that night as well. Okay. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
Mr.
Chairman,
This process
should we bring the
started-
lights up, or
I guess we probably could.
will we need to refer to the slides or not? No? Okay. That way we
Sorry,
can...
Mr. Zupka, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yep.
I know this process started a few months ago, and all our staff and personnel have come up with, what they need. In a way, they're a wish list, and then they cut it down, some to be realistic, because if you just let them go, we'd be doing a lot, spending a lot. But it has taken a lot of hard work on everybody's part to get to this point. And the only thing I'd like to point out is, we really, even though it always appears that we stay in the budget, there are things that come up that we do end up working without the outside the budget, but that's going to happen. But in today's world, it's harder and harder to keep doing that, and we don't want to get in a situation where, almost like the federal government, we don't want to have to print any more money to stay within it. But I thank everyone for their hard work on it, and we'll see how this progresses. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our budget figure for the 2012 road program is almost just shy of $6 million, and I did ask the township manager, given the tight economic times that we're all in, I wondered if we needed to be as aggressive with the road program next year. And then we began to discuss the increase in cost. If we extend this program out, the increase in cost as each year, the cost of the labor and the contracts and the asphalt and the price of oil and everything going up. So I'd like to address a question to Mr. Sullivan. If you could guess, I mean, if we don't, $1 spent on road program this year, next year, or 3 years from now, what does that dollar turn into? Is it $2 or $1.50? And how, is it really? Are we really saving by doing so much work in this coming year? Any thoughts you have on that would be helpful.
Certainly, you save money by doing as much as you can each year. At this point, we're probably looking at about 3 more years for the road program to be finished in that area. Asphalt is very volatile. I think we spent more on asphalt in 2008 than we have in the past couple of years on a per ton basis. It's hard to predict that. Labor always goes up. The cost of labor always goes up. The cost of equipment goes up. And the materials remain pretty steady, but with the asphalt, you just never know.
And within, after, this is, I guess, for all of us, after we finish what we have called our road program in 3 years, then these kind of large expenses go away. But obviously we have some small amount of upkeep, as we have in our budget this year, for some of the smaller roads or township roads that aren't getting a full reconstruction. So, but our budget may go from this $6 million to, I don't know, 50,000, or so it's obviously going to drop dramatically. So there is an end in sight to these kinds of large expenditures, and I was just trying to balance in my mind between wanting to get the project done and not wanting to spend so much next year. So I'd like to hear from other people, what you all think we should do.
Okay.
That's it for now.
All right. Mr. Dents?
No questions or comments.
Okay. Yeah, I had a similar conversation with Mr. Gray regarding the road program and how much money we should be looking at spending, and his feeling, and obviously he's been manager now for, I guess, almost 5 years, right? And before that, he was the finance director for 8 years, I believe, before that. So, he's worked in this area for a long time, and I trust his judgment, which is the reason he's manager. But his feeling was, you spend the money now, it's going to get more expensive. You need to, take advantage of the fact that, in some way a recession is a little bit beneficial to us because people are looking for work, and so bids are coming in lower. And things aren't quite as expensive in some cases, and so that's not going to be like that forever, we hope, obviously. And so if we wait and don't do the road program as much this year, we plan on doing more 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're going to be spending more money. And so his feeling was that, let's spend the money now, let's get this program over with sooner rather than later. And then, as things get more expensive later on, we won't have to be spending as much money. So and that's the similar conversation I'd had with him. Again, Mr. Zupka said it well too. Thanking all the people who've put in for this. Certainly, there are things that we'd like to do above and beyond this. There's always, always things we could be spending money on, but we're trying to, given the economic situation, tax revenues are down for us too. Fewer houses being sold means fewer transfer taxes. Property values going down means property taxes aren't as high for us, and so we always pride ourselves in being very financially stable, and we are very financially stable, but we still are impacted. Even the landfill you'd think would be exempt from downturns. Everybody throws trash away. So I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a good time or bad time, recession or an economic boom, but they've been feeling the pinch too, and the money we get from them is not as high as we had gotten in the past and what they've been projecting for a while. So I think we've made a lot of good decisions here, a lot of tough decisions to go ahead and focus on these issues that you saw highlighted in the presentation. Again, we'll take some public comment if there's any comments or questions. Remembering again, we're going to come back to this when we vote in a few minutes. It's a vote just to advertise and put this out there. Basically, is that we're approving this draft as a board so that the public can now see it, and then we'll be coming back to it in about a month or so to vote on a more solid proposal.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one last
sure.
question? The $1 million budgeted for the replacement of the police radios, could we hear a little bit more of an explanation? $1 million for radios sounds like a lot of money. So we could have a fuller explanation of what all is involved, what actually has to be renovated, replaced, restructured with the hardware.
Okay. All of the Motorola radios currently operate on 25 kilohertz, and they're reducing the bandwidth down to 12.5 in order to provide more channels for emergency services. When that happens, all of our radios become obsolete. And it's just a matter of the date has fluctuated a bit back and forth. The original date in the mandate was by January 1st, 2013, everything had to be switched over because that was the date when the narrow banding would go into effect, which means the radios have to be replaced during 2012. There's been a little bit of back and forth on that number. It may be a year difference. We've heard some different things, but it is going to happen regardless. And the radios, I believe the quotes we've gotten range from $5,000 to $7,000 a piece. And we need, how many? About 90.
90 to 100, at least in the police department alone.
Yeah, so that's right. Okay.
So we have to set aside funding for this. They're going to have to be replaced. There really isn't an option. It's a federal mandate. It's unfunded. And all the local municipalities, this is nationwide. Mm-hmm. So municipalities across the nation are struggling to come up with the funding for this. It's going to happen, and it's got to be done.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there public comment? I see one hand. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Mr. Dale?
I saw in the budget to replace trees next to the skate park. Didn't we just replace those trees?
We did replace those trees several years ago. Unfortunately, some of the trees in that area by the skateboard park died. So we do need to replace those trees that...
Because I noticed them dying shortly after they were planted. I just didn't know, did we plant those or did an outside company plant them?
Outside company.
No warranty with these trees?
That's expired. That's passed.
Okay. Second thing is about the road program. I believe you could put out bids and lock people into their labor is not going up that much from this year to next year. You may have to have a variable set for the asphalt price because fuel could technically be cheaper next year. You know, it's hard to say, but I think people are looking for work. You could lock them in if you want to split the road program in half, lock them into their labor costs, but just leave the fuel or asphalt cost open. I think they would lock into a price this year for next year and kill two birds with one stone. I mean, to spend all the money we've been spending, we do spend a lot of money here. It might make sense to split it up a little bit and let a little interest collect on the additional $3 or $4 million, and obviously more than offset the additional cost to the asphalt, I would think. The other thing was with the federal government, did they come out with a bunch of new police forces and fire departments that we're unaware of? Why do we need this many more channels on the emergency services? And why does everyone now have to pay for it with no federal grant money?
Well, like you said, the program, the law was passed in '06. And obviously, they delayed implementation, I guess, to allow municipalities to sort of, I guess, save up the money or get it all ready.
But I mean, what's
I
not
don't know
working?
if-
What's
I don't-
not working now?
Yeah, I don't know if it's as much more emergency radios as it is more bandwidth being used up by cell phones and wireless equipment.
Yeah, it's all,
Yeah, I think it's more that more all the wireless stuff that we have, all the, whether it's iPads or
It's
cell
affecting all the
phones
police
or-
radio frequencies, and
It's just that there's only so much frequency, I guess, out there, and so as more and more people need access to more and more frequencies, you have to start limiting down
Okay.
the different, dividing it up more, I guess, basically.
Okay.
That's, it's not so much that there are new police forces, new fire departments, et cetera. It's just that bandwidth is being used up more and more and more.
And also, I don't know if Betsy could explain more about the millage rate and how you come up with the millage rate, because I know for a while there I was very confused on where they're coming up with the 7.22. What is that based off of? And I didn't know if she could give a quick explanation.
Sure, that's fine.
sure. The way we come up with a millage rate, basically the value of a mill is set by the assessed value of the properties within the township. A mill is estimated to be worth about $319,000 in real estate tax revenue to us. So for each mill we charge, that's approximately how much we expect back. Okay? So that's how we decide. In the smaller funds, like the fire hydrant and the library and whatnot, that have very few outgoing expenses, we can nail that pretty close. We know exactly what the expenses are going to be, and we charge just enough millage to bring in enough revenue to cover those expenses, basically on a break even. And we work our way back into that number. Okay, so we take all those smaller ones and then allot the balance to the general fund, which of course has the highest number of expenditures. That's your general operating expenses. Okay?
Okay. All right. Go ahead, sir. And then Mr. Kinney, after you. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Shaw. Thank you so much for the presentation. I thought that it was worth, your time and effort was obviously noticed. A couple of comments, with regards to the road reconstruction. When I look at a figure that's 20% of the entire township's budget, it's a little startling, and obviously nothing's being decided upon tonight, so I realize that. But I share some of the same concerns as Mr. Snipes and a couple of the other people had mentioned. I work as a financial advisor in the township. I live in the township, and I guess that argument of what would be cheaper, now or later, and just a couple of thoughts about that. I mean, I think that there's power in the type of volume that we're talking about. We're not talking about a $50,000 contract. We're talking about a substantial amount of money, and I think that maybe that gives us the leverage. A $6 million proposal gives us the leverage to lock in the labor rates. It also gives us the opportunity to set up the contract in a creative way so that the expenses are paid out over a 2-year period. I don't see why, as a township with that type of expenditure, we wouldn't have the ability to make our terms, to make some kind of flexibility or creativity with the terms. The information that I didn't get from the advertisement, the suggestion that you had created, the slide, what is the total revenues? You had itemized them, but I didn't have a chance to write them down or add them up. But what were approximately the total revenues that the township is going to bring in, the proposal for 2012?
From any particular, we get
From all sources. I mean, you had a few sources there. You had the community.
Yeah, we get revenues from a lot of different funds. I mean, obviously taxes, regular property taxes, real estate transfer taxes.
Right.
We get various monies from the state, crime prevention fund, highway
Right.
aid fund.
Right.
So there's a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were generally listed there, but do you have a figure, an approximation?
That'll be in the budget. Yeah, I mean, you can give, but actually, when you take a look at the budget, those
It'll
funds
be
are
there.
specified. But I'll let Mr. Rukoff wants to just mention a couple of them just offhand. while she's looking.
And while you're looking at that, I mean, the reason why I'm asking is I'm really just curious to see what type of gap there is, you know, if we're self-sufficient, or how much of a reliance there is on the general fund of the township to, excuse me, to cover the gap. You know, if we're at expenditures of 30 million and we're only creating 25 from all sources,
Right.
well, we've got a pretty quick drain on the township's asset base. I was curious about that. If she can get that information, and then, you know, I'll be here next month, so I realize that, you know, you don't have to have all the answers right now, you know. And then the other issue that was concerning to me, and, you know, let me just take a moment to say that I'm not political by any means, nor am I here to persecute anybody. But I was, you know, one of the folks, you know, I think we all got it, but there was a newsletter sent out by Ms. Wislowski before election time, and it had talked a little bit about the way that the funds of the township are being invested at this point in time. And I wanted to ask you to, you know, just clarify if what I had read was accurate with regards to, you know, millions of dollars being in money markets, and what type of administration fees that are we as a township paying on those dollars. If you could make comment about that at this point in time, if you know. If not, maybe be prepared for next month.
I didn't get Wislowski newsletter, quite frankly.
Okay.
I shouldn't say I didn't get it. I didn't look at it.
Right.
So I can't specify an answer to something I didn't see.
So just for instance, it had mentioned, and I don't remember the name of the community bank, but there was a community bank where approximately $10 million was being held, and it had made reference to a money market that was being used, and that the rate was approximately a 20th of a percentage point, something like that. Is anyone on the board or is anyone in the finance committee able to comment about the specifics, or some of the specifics as to how the monies are being managed at this point in time?
Is there a single bank? Is it First National Trust of Newtown that we have?
Township has several bank accounts that we utilize.
Okay.
First National Bank, Pliget, SCI, First Service Bank. And there are fees associated with some of the accounts. I mean, we could provide that, but
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, you know, you can actually put in a record request, and you'd be able to get, you know, if you want specifically. I mean, obviously, you have the finance background to ask specifically what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a few different funds. There's quite a few different fees and costs involved.
Right.
Mr. Gray isn't going to know them off the top of his head.
Yeah, and I wouldn't ask anybody to. I realize that. And again, like I said, I'm not here to persecute anybody personally or anything like
Right.
that. The reason why I bring that up, again, just to go back a couple of sentences, is I'm concerned that if we have a gap, you know, what are we doing to be prudent but be vigilant about that gap, you know? And I'm thankful that we're not going to have to reconstruct the roads forever.
Right.
But, you know, does it do, you know, if there's a $5 million gap for 3 years, what type of irreparable damage does that create in terms of income that we won't be able to create on that general fund through time, you know, looking in the future? So those are some of my concerns, and maybe I can talk with you after, just so I can better understand how to get what I'm asking for, and, you know, just to be able to help, and for my own sake, and, you know, for the sake of the community. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kinney?
These radios, we getting rid of them? What do we do with the radios that we're going to get rid of if we're getting all new
I
ones?
think they're going to be obsolete, so I don't know if
they're going to be obsolete.
What do we do with them?
Smithsonian, yeah. Smithsonian was a recommendation from Mr. Dell. Yeah, we could give them to kids to play with or something like that. I don't know.
Sure. Give them to that daycare center. That'll keep them busy.
Right. Yeah, now it's... yeah. Any other comments or questions? See no hands. All right, is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Referencing the budget, again, authorizing advertisement. You heard some good questions here already, looking for some specific figures and facts from the budget. That is actually something that will be available once we vote to approve, just presentation of the facts and the advertisement. So anybody can take a look at that information and find it for themselves on the website here at the Township Building, or also at Flushington Library. Is there a motion to authorize the advertising of the 2012 budget?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, item 3 is consider amendment to Chapter 206, Records Ordinance. Mr. Gray, we'll turn to you, and I think Mr. Clark is also going to talk a little bit about some changes we're making to this ordinance.
Yes, the township is requested to consider an amendment to Chapter 206 records. At the October 18th meeting, the board approved authorization to advertise. Some of the changes included in this amendment include the weight for the heavy tow truck versus standard tow truck. Heavy tow truck would be weight of 26,000 pounds or more. Standard tow truck would be less than 26,000 pounds. 26,000 is the weight of a commercial vehicle. Some of the other highlights include, for 2012 only, all applications required must be submitted to the township prior to December 15th for this year only, for the 2012 year only. Some other items include a fence no less than 6 feet high to be included at the lot. The impound yard shall be no less than 10,000 square feet, and all storage lots within the township shall be clearly identified by signage with the name and telephone number of the company or individual that owns the storage lot. Each tow truck will also be required to have a broom shovel, a crowbar, and oil dry, and there's also some additional language in terms of violations. The police department has reviewed this document as well. In addition, the township did hold a meeting with various wreckers that work in the township. At this time, the board is asked to consider adoption of this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know Lieutenant Airy is here, and he's worked a lot with our solicitor's office to take a look at this. And again, this is an ordinance we updated 05, 06, I'm trying to remember now, when we...
The last time this was addressed was back in 05.
Okay.
And with resolution 0538, as Mr. Gray is showing to me that.
All right. Yeah, and some of the changes, as Mr. Gray has mentioned, for example, setting a certain requirement for a lot to be used, and obviously a fence no shorter than 6 feet high, at least no less than 6 feet high, obviously providing some security for vehicles that are towed, so that people don't have to worry about their vehicles there, about anything happening to it. There's also, as Mr. Gray said, some changes in terms of violations. If there's a record who violates this ordinance, there's more, I guess, what we hope actually is a better procedure for complaints to come in, for those complaints to have if there's a tower who's had a complaint filed against them, to have a hearing with the manager for sort of like just to find out what the story is, get both sides of the story, and then to go from there in terms of any fines, punishments, etc., any kind of findings by the manager in terms of whatever violations, if a violation occurred. And also adding in this definition in terms of a heavy tow truck versus a standard tow truck. Obviously, if a regular car breaks down, you can pull that with a regular tow truck, but if you have a tractor trailer that breaks down, you need obviously you can't use a regular tow truck for that. So specifying that. I know there was a meeting held with wreckers a few weeks ago. I believe Lieutenant Airy was there, correct? Or along with our solicitor's office, somebody from the solicitor's office to meet with them and hear and kind of go over some of the specifics. We'll go to board members to have their comments and questions heard, and then we'll have some public comment as well. Mr. Zupka?
Are we doing them both at the same time, or we'll discuss both of them at the same time?
Yeah, I suppose it makes sense. Obviously, item 4 is amending the fees. Basically, the fees have stayed the same for a while. This would be basically, I think, an increase in fees over what was done. I think the last time we did that was 05 or 06?
05.
05. So obviously, increasing the fees. So I imagine, if people want to comment on both, I don't see an issue with that.
Okay. Well, start with the one that's stated for wreckers. How did we come up with the classification of the heavy truck versus the standard? We have I know you had the the meeting with the wreckers, the operators themselves, but the first thing that comes to mind is the way it's stated on here. Maybe we should be using it more like classification of driver's licenses, because standard tow truck is 26,000, or standard tow is 26,000 pounds and less, and the heavy one's 26,000 pounds and up. Maybe a heavy one should be 26,001 pound, just so we don't get in a situation of it. Myself, I'm not convinced 26,000 pounds is a good number, but if the wreckers themselves, the operators are okay with that, I'm sure we'll hear in public comment if they are. I can live with that. The fees, did we actually do a survey of what insurance companies are paying, extended warranty companies are paying, so we're not putting a charge in there that if it is an insurance job or something on the extended warranty, if the customer's going to have to lay out extra money on top of it. And again, real quick, I almost look at the heavy-duty tow at $225 is light, where I think with the equipment that has to come out to take something that's over 26,000 pounds, you're probably dealing with a $500,000 piece of equipment that comes out. $225, I think is a low amount, and maybe that should be adjusted. Again, if the tow operators are fine with it, it's good enough for me. The somewhere in here I saw it where it talks about equipment that has to be on the wrecker, and it says a crowbar, shovel, and oil dry. Maybe we should have in there should be a bucket or a container to get rid of the oil dry. We're cleaning up, but what are we going to do? Just leave it on the road? If we're going to include what equipment the truck should be carrying with it, that should be added in there to section, I would say section H. But it's just some of the concerns I have with it. Again, I would like to hear from some of the operators that are here, their feelings on this. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Kozlowski?
Well, zoning is, not zoning, but wreckers and automobiles are Mr. Zupka's forte. I seem to be the expert on missing tapes tonight, so I pass.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
Yes, I was just thinking it'd be helpful to have a little background to why we're making the changes that we're making.
Okay. Well, I know in some cases, obviously, there were some issues, especially with I think it was Section 13, which deals with any violations of the towers ordinance. I know there have been some issues recently of a couple different towing companies where there were complaints made, and we're finding that in some cases, the system in place that we had wasn't working as smoothly as we'd like it to work. In terms of other suggestions, I know a lot of it came from the police department. Lieutenant Airy's been working with a lot of these issues, and he was the one who came up with a lot of the ideas, hearing from the police officers who have to obviously be there when there's a car that gets towed, if there's some kind of accident, and some of the feedback he was getting regarding what should be happening or what should be present. Mr. Clark, you okay? Or it's a little chilly in here?
Just commenting to Mr. Gray how cold it is in here right now. I have a couple of vents right at me.
Okay, sorry. All right.
Yes.
I don't know if, Lieutenant Airy, did you want to comment on anything in terms of your thoughts and about the wreckers ordinance, or any of the information you were getting from either police officers or towers that led up to this, some of the changes we're making?
I'm just here really to answer your questions. However, it came about because we did receive complaints from the public. The public did lodge a few complaints. When we looked at the ordinance, it really wasn't clear on some of the charging issues, and we felt that we wanted to make the ordinance fair to the public, and we also wanted to make it fair to the tellers. They have to make a living. We understand that. But we also want the public to be treated fairly. So it's basically a balancing act.
Okay. All right, was the issue, I know Mr. Zupka brought this up, the crowbar and the oil dry, was that something that came up from?
There was just, I just had a couple officers caught to be on a couple of accidents, and they said the truck, for whatever reason, didn't have oil dry on the truck. It held the road closed for quite some time. They brought it to my attention, so we just added that. It's really a minor point, but most of them have it. It's just, we just put it in there.
Okay, all right. Mr. Snipes, any other comments or questions?
No, that's it, thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Zupka, did you have, or Mrs. Kozlowski,
Officer
comments?
Airy, are you satisfied with the changes that have been made? Because this has been such a hot issue for so many years.
It has.
Are you happy with it?
I am.
Good, we'll hear
It's a
what
compromise, I think, that,
We'll
like
hear
I
what
said,
the
it's a
towers
balancing
say.
act between the public and the towers. And
If you
it's-
feel
it's a
that it's
compromise.
fair, then that's important to me, because I have a lot of respect for you.
Mr. Zupka, any comments or questions for Mr. Lieutenant Airy?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
The big thing, I think, is the fee schedule being tweaked and adjusted. It wasn't clearly defined in the past, and this pretty much makes it cut and dry exactly what you're charging, who, when, where you're being towed. They were a lot of the issues that came up in the past from residents' complaints were the fee schedule and how they were being charged. The rest of the stuff is pretty cut and dry. A lot of the stuff is decreasing the size of the lots, is that correct? And the fence is required?
Well, it's requiring fences at this point. The ordinance is very vague at this point. It doesn't really require a fence. We felt that if we're going to have vehicles towed on behalf of the police department, they should be secured in a fenced property.
Right.
I think that's reasonable.
That's all I had.
Okay. All right. No, I didn't have any comments for Lieutenant Airy. Thank you very much. All right. No, and I want to thank Lieutenant Airy as well as I know Ms. Gallagher from Mr. Clark's office worked a lot on this issue, so I want to thank her as well for her work. And I know that there was a meeting with the towers, and we're going to have some public comment now, and imagine that I appreciate them coming out. I think some of them here. I want to thank them for coming out, and any input they had, or if they have any thoughts, et cetera, we'll be glad to hear them. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Yes, sir, up front.
Yeah, my comment was, it says in the ordinance now, we're going to have to tow the vehicle.
I'm sorry, you need to just give us your name, that's all.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill Leonhauser from Pendel Towing.
Okay, thank you.
Saying we have to tow the vehicles up to 12 miles for that fee. Now, like Mr. Zupka said earlier, East Windsor's only 11 miles from here. So we're basically going to pick up a car at Route 1 and 13 and have to take the guy to East Windsor for the same price as we would take it to our lot, which is a far tow, not enough money. Second, if we're on duty tow and our truck's in East Windsor delivering somebody, then they call us for another duty tow, we're in East Windsor. So I think that should be made to anywhere within the township, or back to our yard, or anywhere within the township, not a 12-mile range, because that puts us into Northeast Philly, puts us into Trenton, puts us to East Windsor, all for the same fee, which isn't enough to start with, and then we're not in the township if we're needed for the second tow. That's my biggest thing. If, 12 miles is a far way if you're leaving from Route 1 and 13. That puts us to South Brunswick, New Jersey, just about. And that puts us out of the area for the next duty tow.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good comment.
Thank you. That's something I hadn't considered.
Other comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Binney?
Mr. Harvey, just so you're aware, that change is only a 2-mile change from the way it previously was. It had originally been 10 miles, and it had only been increased an additional 2 miles.
What was the reasoning for the change? Was it some more in line with other municipalities in terms of what they do?
I believe so. And that's also, much of the fee schedule was by looking at what other municipalities are allowing. It's not the highest, it's not the lowest, but it's in line with what is in other municipalities.
Okay. Mr. Binney?
Hi, Brian Binney, Falls Township. I had a question regarding the, debris removal, only because I was on the receiving end of a flat tire right outside this township building from debris that was left after an accident. Is there a requirement in the ordinance that they have to sweep up the debris and take it away with them?
Yes.
And is there a fine or a penalty associated with the failure to do that in the ordinance?
It does state specifically, each tow truck shall be equipped with a broom, shovel, crowbar, now adding crowbar and oil dry. In terms of, and looking through the ordinance real fast, I know I'm not going to be able to find it.
11B.
11B.
Have to remove debris,
Fa-
and
yeah.
if they don't, it's
I'll-
a violation, and then there are penalty, after a hearing, there can be penalties assessed if they don't remove the debris.
So, and I'll read it to you just so, because you asked, failure to remove debris. When called to the scene of an accident, either under this chapter or at the request of the owner of the motor vehicle, the wrecker shall be responsible for removing debris from the roadway, such as glass, metal fragments, etc., leaving the roadway free of such debris. Failure to remove debris shall be unlawful.
Great, thanks.
Okay? All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Other comments or questions? See no hands? Okay. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so I guess maybe the absence of a lot of comments says that there, I guess people are, kind of satisfied with what they see. There was the point made by Mr. Leanhauser about the 12-mile radius. It was previously 10, now 12. Mr. Zupka, you had a comment?
Yeah, and the difference in the basic tow, and I'll speak to Mr. Leanhauser, the basic tow, the light duty, you're basically going to be dealing with cars, normal pickup trucks. When you start getting into the heavy duty, I'm pretty sure that even AAA, if you call AAA and have the heavy duty road service, the base figure they charge, and you might know better than I was told it's $350 just to roll the truck.
Like you said earlier, the big wreckers are $500,000.
Yeah.
So it's...
Could you come up, please?
Yeah, sorry. You just repeat that, what you just said, too.
No, I was just saying that the big wreckers they start at $500,000, so, and the insurances are crazy in our business.
No, I really am on the side of our residents, although I remember a giggy when we were putting that old cement mixer truck together, and I learned a lot from your family, but I am on the side of the residents. I don't want to see them being taken advantage of.
Nor do I.
Okay, but and that's why I'm sort of dwelling on the heavy duty more than anything. I believe the price for a basic tow for those should be higher. I know, you come out, and if it's more than just a basic tow, even with a car, basic tow with a basic cleanup, there should be additions on them. True, if you're going over to East Windsor, you're going to have tolls on it, but
Well, my biggest concern was having the truck out of the township while we're on duty tow.
Yeah.
Because now we're over in Jersey delivering a car that, we could take it back to our yard and they could have their own tow service pick it up. Or if it's a resident of the township, we would gladly take it back to their house. But I just didn't want to have to send a truck to South Brunswick, New Jersey to deliver somebody that's broke down while we're on police tow because, I got 15 or 20 minutes to get to a police tow, and I can't do that if I'm in South Brunswick, New Jersey delivering the last police tow.
And I just, again, want to make it clear, and if any other operators want to, chime in on this, the difference in the weights. You can have a Class C motorhome that's only 21,000 pounds, but you're not going to move that with the same vehicle.
And also, once you put a vehicle 10,000 pounds and over on the hook, you're automatically a CDL. So you could have a small wrecker that's under CDL and could tow a car fine without having a CDL.
Yeah.
But if you put a dually pickup truck on the back of that same
Now
wrecker,
the combined
you're required to have a
GVW.
CDL.
Yeah. But again, my thoughts on if the wreckers are satisfied, the operators are satisfied with how the weights are stated on here, I'm fine with it. I would just like to see it change. The heavy duty be 26,001, just like a CDL license would be over, and the standard truck would be 26,000 even. And so there's never any confusion with.
I do have one more comment, if I could.
Absolutely.
It's saying about the storage that we have to release cars on the weekends. If we don't release cars on the weekends, we can't charge for storage on the weekends.
Correct.
Right.
My issue with that is if I go out and pick up a car Saturday night, it's a DUI, impound, okay? Now I'm getting penalized because now I have to wake up Sunday morning and release the gentleman's car to him on Sunday morning so he can go back and meet his friends at the bar to watch the football game. You know what I mean?
No, that's not true. I think the point of that is so that if you tow a car on Friday night and your business is closed and the person can't go pick up their car, then you can't charge them. You charge them for the first night, obviously, if I'm not mistaken, but you're not charging them if your business is closed and it's not available for them to come pick it up.
Right, that was really what it's aimed at. It's aimed at people that they go on Saturday or Sunday to pick up their car and you're not open. All right, well,
Right, or offices.
they've made the effort, and that's fine. They've made the effort to be there to pick it up. So by charging them, you're almost like punishing them for
just
being
like-
closed.
It'd be like Philadelphia Parking Authorities. They're closed a certain time on Friday, and they're not open until Monday, whether your car is in there or not. I mean, they don't have the place, it's not staffed 24/7 to release cars.
Right.
I mean, we need a day off every once in a while, too.
Right, but
But now I have to have somebody to man my office throughout the weekend.
No, you don't. You just
Necessarily.
can't charge them if you can't get the car.
you can tell
if
them-
somebody breaks into that car and steals radio, I'm still going to pay for that radio. So why shouldn't I be allowed to charge them storage? Because I'm responsible for that vehicle at that point. Once I take that vehicle from them people, I'm responsible for it. So anything that happens to that vehicle, I'm paying for. So why am I entitled to storage?
And I believe in the conversations with Lieutenant Airy when this was first brought up, the concern was, and Mr. Leonhauser has done a nice job of saying the guy with the DUI going out drinking at the bar. We were more concerned about maybe the mom in her minivan who had to have it towed, and then she couldn't get it back.
I'm sorry.
So the idea was that if they couldn't get the car out because they weren't open, they shouldn't be charged an additional storage time. And that's why he doesn't have to have someone there to release it if they're not open on those regular hours. It's just that they can't be charging an additional day. If I want to come on Saturday and get my car out and there's nobody there, the idea was that that person shouldn't be penalized for having to come back on Monday morning. And there's one other thing I'd like to point out. There is a provision in the fee schedule, a very important provision, called unusual circumstances. And it says that additional fees at reasonably prevailing rates may be applied in the case of any unusual circumstances, such as seriously wrecked vehicles, vehicles in remote or inaccessible areas, cleanup of an exceptional amount of debris, destinations 12 miles or greater from the location of the subject vehicle, or like situations. I think this was put in there, and again, this was in consultation with Lieutenant Airy and Chief Wilcox, that there are certain instances where there's a rolled vehicle and they need to bring out one of these heavy-duty towers, and there's a rolled vehicle that's gone down an embankment. Obviously, it's going to take them a couple hours to do it. Obviously, they're going to be able to charge additional fees at the prevailing rates and prevailing charges at that point in time, because it was one of the things that Lieutenant Airy thought it was only fair that it be addressed, that they don't just get paid $225 for a 5-hour job. So.
Well, I'm looking at that. The fees we're showing here are just for a basic tow, where they would come out, be able to hook the car up, a minimal amount of cleaning, and take the car. Anything above that is time and material.
What is reasonably prevailing rate. The reason we put that in there is that if there is a question, and I know I'm not accusing anyone of would do this, if somebody charged them $2,000 and we looked at it and said, well, the prevailing rate only would have been $500, we'll address that with the tower. So we just want to make sure that it's the prevailing rate that's being charged and not somebody potentially being gouged for an unusual tow.
Lieutenant Airy, who makes the decision whether it's an unusual circumstance?
I guess the tower would have to make that decision. I just want to clarify the storage, which we just discussed here. It's only for the first 72 hours. After that, if the vehicle were there for 6 months, someone failed to come get their vehicle, they could charge the storage over that period, even though they weren't open. All right,
So 72 hours is
first
the limit.
72 hours. The reason we came up with that figure was, if your car gets towed on a Friday in the evening, they're not open. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, if we have a long weekend, which sometimes we do, they would come to get their car on Tuesday. Now they're paying 4 days worth of storage. And they want their car, and they can't get their car. That's where that came from, to protect people from having to deal with that.
Thank you. I apologize for being late. It was unavoidable for me tonight, but I was anxious to hear the discussion. I take it that everybody is happy, the towers, with the exceptions of the issues you've raised now. You think that it's fair?
Yeah, for the most part, other than the storage on the weekends and the 12-mile limit. You know, like I say, I think it should be kept within the township for that price, not, because we can't really go out of the township because we're on duty tow. So that's my biggest thing, you know. I mean, for
What's the remedy? What suggestion do you make to remedy that concern?
Just hold that rate to anywhere within the township, rather than 12 miles, because 12 miles, like I say, takes me into Philly, takes me into New Jersey, takes me far from the township where I need to be because I'm on call.
Lieutenant, how do you feel about that suggestion?
To be honest with you, I hadn't thought of it, but it seems like a reasonable request.
Is it possible to modify it tonight?
I don't know the answer to that.
Vote of the board?
I think the existing ordinance has 10 miles. That's been that way since '05. This is would be increasing it to 12.
Correct. If you were to bring it back to 12 or bring it back to 10, I do not believe that would constitute a substantial amendment which would require re-advertising.
Well,
if you are eliminating it entirely and saying it is only within the bounds of the township, that might constitute a substantial amendment which might require re-advertising. But I will also point out that in much of the discussions of this original, when this was originally put in 5 or 6 years ago, there was a recognition that there may be someone who is involved in an accident who needs their vehicle towed, where if they don't live in the township, if they live in Ben Salem or Bristol or Northampton, that if we didn't have 12 miles, that would mean the car would be towed back to their lot. Then the person would have to go and get another tow truck to come and get them. And we thought that that balance of at the time 10 miles was reasonable. I understand what they're saying about possibly into Jersey or into Northeast Philly, but that was what the thought process was back 6-7 years when we first were working on this.
Okay.
Any counterpoint?
Lieutenant Airy, has there ever been a complaint about this issue before from the towers? Has this been a problem in the past?
No. Most of the tows, I would say 9 out of every 10, they go back to the lot, to the tow lot. Very seldom do people have their vehicles towed to their homes. It does happen, but it's rare, quite frankly.
These towers, the township, we don't have our own tow trucks. Obviously, you're all in business to make money, but you're also doing a service. You're representing Falls Township by towing for us. I mean, if it's that big a deal, you don't have to be on the tow list. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't change it or we don't have to consider changing it, but I consider it a privilege to be on the tow list because you're, you know, how many towers are there now? 8?
9.
9.
Okay. All right. All right. Other comments or questions from board members? We've had some pretty good points brought up. Obviously, like Mr. Clark said, we could, change. I'm looking for the exact subsection.
It's in the fee schedule.
In the fee schedule, you're right. It would be actually the resolution, I guess, not so much the ordinance.
Right.
Even if we changed it to 10 miles,
It's section
if somebody was out front here and had a problem, and 10 miles, you're past Quaker Bridge Mall over in New Jersey, possibly getting stuck in traffic. Now that piece of equipment is out of the township for better than an hour and a half, and if it's needed again, it's downing the piece of equipment. I guess we can't deal with every single circumstance that comes up, but maybe something to the effect of, within the township, and if it's something that goes out, the decision will have to be made at that time if it's prudent to tow it at that time, or you would take it to a safe location till you had the opportunity to take it that 10 or 12 miles. But I think the priority would be, again, our own residents in our own township.
Mr. Clark, this is in the resolution, not the ordinance.
It's not in the ordinance, so there's no issue with regards to changing it if you want to, because it's in the resolution and not in the ordinance.
Right, and I think it does open up, and obviously this has been worked on for quite a bit of time. A lot of thought has gone into it, and it's one of these things where when we start playing with possibilities, I mean, technically speaking, you could have someone who gets into an accident, just one side of the road where it's Falls Township, and they get towed somewhere that's 100 yards away, that technically is Bristol Township, and they have to pay a higher rate because it's not in the township, if we were to change the ordinance to say that, which I think is unfair. I would be in favor, quite frankly, of leaving it the way it had been at 10, my thoughts, or possibly even, throwing something in the resolution about, staying in state, I think might be something that's reasonable. Those are my thoughts. But overall, I think, when we say staying in the township, I think that's kind of splitting hairs a little bit too much. Was my opinion.
I agree.
don't know what other board members feel.
And excuse me.
Mr. Leonhauser, I have heard a lot of hairy stories in the 47 years I've been involved. You can imagine what kind of stories I've heard. And it always boils down to the integrity of the towers. And I think we have a pretty good group of towers. I have not heard anything, and usually trouble finds me. And I have heard nothing in probably the last 5 years. So, I would like to see our towers happy, but I also want to make sure that our residents are taken care of. So it's like splitting hairs sometimes.
Sure.
I think maybe we'd probably be better off to leave it the way it is. Since it is a resolution, we don't have to worry about re-advertising or anything. We could easily, if it's the will of this board, to change it, to 10, 12. That's optional tonight, and we'll decide when the vote gets taken, okay?
Now, I know a couple weeks ago, we had that little freak snowstorm. I was on duty, and there was no way that I could have sent a truck out of town, because we had, 9 cars in one spot and 4 somewhere else. There's no way that I could have sent a truck out of town, because I wouldn't have been here to clear the highway, because the roads were icy and there was cars everywhere. So there's no way I could have taken somebody,
Sure.
out of the area, because I wouldn't have been able to clear the rest of the roads. That was my biggest.
And that certainly makes sense, and I appreciate you coming up and bringing up this point, Mr. Leonhauser. And one of the things we have to consider, or anybody should consider when they're making a law, is you're making it for the norm, not for the exceptions. It's impossible to make a law to account for every single possible exception that goes out. And as Lieutenant Airy already said, the vast majority of tows don't run into the issue of going over 10 miles away. They go back to the tower's property, or maybe if I know I have a buddy who has a body shop, I just say, take it to my buddy's place, and you take it there, or you take it back to my house. It's really up to if the driver's able to, because if there's, God forbid, some sort of accident, and they aren't there to sort of take care of their vehicle. But if they're there and they're able to make a decision, then they make the decision that's best for them. I see a few places on the resolution, paragraph 1, 2, and I think 5, where the 12 miles is specified. If it's the pleasure of the board to change that to 10, I think I've caught them all.
So moved.
Okay, so I think we have to approve the ordinance before we actually approve the resolution.
We're still on number 3, right?
Yeah, we're still technically on item number 3, although we've discussed both, and that's fine.
We're correcting.
So we can come back to that. The ordinance as is, most of the controversy, the discussion has been more about, I think, the 10 miles, 12 miles. The ordinance itself, I think, is pretty cut and dry. I do see Mr. Zupka brought up a couple of points about the 26,000 pounds, 26,001. It is written in such a way, I think, Mr. Zupka, that makes that distinction. Heavy tow truck, 26,000 pounds or more. Standard tow truck, less than 26,000 pounds. So I think it does make that distinction.
In the interest of brevity, I do not know why we have to vote twice. We can correct that now if it's the will of the board, and vote clean on one ordinance without a double vote that's going to confuse a board 3 years from now.
Well, it's one vote is an ordinance, ma'am. The other vote is a resolution. The fee schedule is a resolution.
We can correct the resolution now. We don't have to adopt an ordinance that we might correct 2 minutes from now. That's the point I want to make.
All right. Well, if you...
I made a motion.
Motion, is it Resolution 22?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, Resolution 22, which would be setting the rates for towers, changing 12 miles to 10, wherever 12 miles appears. As I said, paragraph 1, 2, and I think 5 are the only places I saw it. There was a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance would be 11-7.
7.
Okay. And now we're looking back at item 3 here. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 11-7?
Mr. Chairman, one, and I know it's a small point, and I'll just bring it up again. Under number 10H, says each tow truck will be equipped with a broom, shovel, crowbar, and oil dry. I would like to see added a container for the oil dry. You know, to clean up, to remove it, not just to sweep it up and leave it on the side of the road. Sure.
As far as the grills and the glass and all that, yes, it needs to be picked up and taken away. But as far as oil dry, if you have oil all over the road, you need to leave the oil dry down so the cars can pat it in. I mean, if
But
we
after
put the oil
it's,
dry down and sweep it right up.
yeah, but after it's
still gotta
swept up in the rain, it's hazardous, right?
Well, the issue is going to be, I mean, after we sweep up all the glass and pick up the grill and all that, we put the oil dry down in oil and antifreeze. If we sweep it right up,
doesn't work.
it's still going to be on, we're still going to have a slick
Still
spot on
have
the
it
ground
there.
where if
Right.
we leave the oil dry down, the cars,
To soak it up, yeah.
Right. So I think it needs to
All right.
stay there. Yeah. Yeah. So I understand your point, Mr. Zupka. I actually don't agree with changing that. I think it should be left as is in the proposed ordinance.
I take back my pronouncement that he's the expert. You are.
He is.
Mrs. Wisłowski, you made a motion to approve the ordinance. Do you stand by that motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Dents seconded. I can beat you on that one, Mr. Snipes. Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the input from the public, too. It was a good discussion. Okay, item number 5 is consider T&M proposal for engineering and inspection services to increase the height of the backstop at the police shooting range. Mr. Gray.
Yes, the township received a memo from Jim Sullivan at T&M regarding the police shooting range. The Falls Township Police Department has asked about obtaining fill material to increase the height of the backstop at their firing range at the U.S. Steel Industrial Park. T&M has provided a quote for the design phase of the project for $9,000. The board is asked to consider this proposal. In addition, Lieutenant Airy is here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. On part of, I guess what's known as Echo Point, there is, and has been for a while now, a firing range for our police department to use, for their own training purposes. And there is a backstop there, obviously, to shoot into, so that bullets don't go flying into New Jersey. And so there is, after a while, it has been sort of wearing down, eroding, and there is an effort to, the police feel that needs to be improved and heightened for added safety and to make sure the range functions as it's supposed to. As Mr. Gray said, Lieutenant Airy is here to speak on that, or any other comments or questions board members might have for Mr. Sullivan. We'll ask those now. Mr. Zupka?
No, I have none.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No, none.
Mr. Dents?
No.
I don't have any. Is there a public comment needed? See one hand? Could have guessed this one. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
So we have,
Wait, we have no
second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, Mr. Dell.
What's there to design to pile more dirt on top of the
going to need a conservation district permit to do this work, which means we have to prepare a plan that they can approve, and then the berm, when it's constructed, has to be compacted. So we'll be watching them compact, making sure it's compacted properly, and getting us the permit for the project.
Really?
Really.
Soil conservation for a backstop.
It's 300 feet long.
Yeah, I know, I've seen it.
All right.
And if the berm isn't constructed and designed properly, and there is an injury that results because it hasn't been constructed and designed properly, our governmental immunity may not apply. So it needs to be designed properly.
Mr. Sullivan, is the conservation district permit because of its location near the water, or just
No,
in general?
just in general.
Okay.
What is the material that's going to be the backstop?
Mr. Sullivan?
We plan on using the cover material that Waste Management uses. Since they're excavating right near there, we'll have them deliver the dirt to us.
Now, there's screenings there now, is that right? Is it screenings, or what's the backstop made of now?
Dirt and screenings, yeah.
Dirt and screenings. How much height are we adding to this backstop?
About 5 or 6 feet.
Okay. Is it going to be contained with anything, or just loose like it is now, just compacted
Like it is,
loose?
yep.
Okay. So, does it need silt fence and silt sock and all that good stuff? Is that
It's likely, yes.
lovely? All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Sullivan, is Mr. Krassert still with the Conservation for the county?
Yes, he is.
Was he working on this?
He will be, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, another public comment? See no hands, or a motion to close public comment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, is there a motion then to award the engineering for the shooting range backstop, engineering inspection services to T&M in an amount not to exceed $9,000?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wislowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, next item on our agenda is a consider amendment to Chapter 193, sex offender residency restrictions. Obviously, this is an issue that's been in the news over the past week, unfortunately. As we've raised before, when this first came up, the Supreme Court of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has declared laws like this one unconstitutional. And so municipalities like ours and others all over the state that have laws similar to this are forced to remove this from the books. We cannot have our police out there enforcing a law like this because they would jeopardize their own standing. They technically would be breaking the law themselves by enforcing a law that has been declared illegal. I know that obviously it's a very sensitive thing. There was a lot of pride on this board when we passed this originally. I think it was back in '04. That we were very, very happy about the fact that we, or '05 actually, that we were able to do this. One of the first communities in Bucks County to pass an ordinance that was this strong. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has decided that it violates the Constitution, and so it has to go. And this ordinance would essentially repeal it. We'll have asked comments or questions from board members. Mr. Clark obviously can answer some of the questions regarding constitutionality and also whatever protections exist already. Mr. Zupka?
No, we have to abide by this, no.
Mrs. Wislowski?
I'm quite familiar with every aspect of it. No question.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you already mentioned it. I would like to hear from Mr. Clark. If we remove these kind of protections for residents of the community, what is the state that has declared this unconstitutional? What protections are provided under state law that we can have our police enforce?
The basis of the Supreme Court's decision was twofold. One was they stated that these ordinances, which were being adopted in many municipalities, were creating essentially what they referred to as localized penal colonies. And they believed that it was restricting the rights of those who had been convicted of certain crimes to live in certain areas. But the main reason it was struck down was that, consistent with Megan's Law, there are already provisions in place where sex offenders are required to register with the state, and when they move into a particular area, the local police departments are notified. In fact, there is a Megan's Law database on the state website where you can go and you can type in your zip code, and you can find out within a certain radius where individuals who are registered as sex offenders live within your area. Sex offenders are required to register for at least 10 years after being released from prison or from having their probation complete. Some sex offenders are required to have lifetime registration. If they violate that, if they don't register, if they move it into an area or out of an area without registering, without providing the notification to the local police departments, they can be prosecuted. It can be considered violations of their probation and parole. The Supreme Court said that this was the dealing with this issue with those who were sex offenders was the purview of the state, and therefore all of these ordinances which were being passed throughout the state were preempted by state law.
A follow-up question. So the requirement under Pennsylvania's Megan's Law for a convicted sex offender or certain types of offenders to register, and then the police are notified, and then anyone who wants to know can put in their zip code, as you described, into a database. Are these offenders both those who have offended against adults and children, or just children, or who are we talking about?
It is not necessarily for all sex offenses. Those involving children are automatically required to register and are automatically classified as sex offenders. There is a second category which is referred to as a sexually violent predator, and that requires lifetime registration. It's usually preceded by a very lengthy prison sentence. But there is, it does not necessarily include everyone, but it can include those who have committed crimes against adults as well as children. But if you've committed a sexual crime against a child, you are automatically classified and automatically have to register.
Okay, thank you. It seems like we don't have any choice but to repeal what we passed earlier, but I'm hoping there's some way to allow residents of the township to be aware that they can look into this database and find the information that they'll need to protect themselves and their families and friends. So I don't know whether that can be put on our website or, you know, in some way advertised across the township, so that as we we might think we're losing a type of protection, but there may be another type of, there is another protection afforded there, but people won't be able to use it if they don't know about it. So
there's no problem putting a link to it on our website, linking to the state. There are municipalities that do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
Over the past few weeks and months in the paper, you've seen advertised, most townships in the area have been doing the same thing, because we all have to, but that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I had the pictures of the sex offenders against children on my website, and that was a very popular thing that people visited. In just 4 months, I had 108,000 hits. Most of them, I would say, were people checking the proximity of the sex offenders to their individual locales. And it was rather widespread. You could go to other states, Connecticut, where I had a grandson who was tiny, and I was able to locate the sex offenders within certain proximity to his house. And it's a wonderful thing. It's something that parents would really want. So if we can put it on the township website, I'd rather see it there than the Snipes advertisement for their farm down there. I'm still waiting for documentation that that's a legal thing to put on our website. And I'll request
That's ridiculous to bring that up on such a serious subject.
I'll
if you'd like the
request it
information, you can
formally.
just ask me.
Right.
I have asked.
No, you
and
have not.
I'm not going to get into a
Let's
contest
stay
with
fo-
you,
this
Mr.
is- Mr.
Snipes.
Snipes is correct. This is a serious issue. We don't need
I am very serious.
personal vendettas about this kind of
Oh,
nonsense.
Mr. Harvey, you're
No,
back to
Mrs.
your old
Kozlowski,
tricks again.
We're having a very good meeting.
We'll
up
see what
until about
happens.
30 seconds ago. Mr.
Because
Gray,
it went your way. You
Mr. Gray.
cover up.
Mr. Gray, make sure, and I think it makes sense probably to connect it probably to our police website. I guess it's a state police website that links to Megan's Law information. We can link that, which is a good idea. All right, so we've had some, and I don't have any comment, obviously, I've made my comments already. Is there any public comment needed? I see one hand. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Mr. Mariani?
You can get that information when you go on the website. Just punch in the zip code, and whatever zip code you want, that whole list will come up with photographs of these people. I understand exactly the action that this board is going to take, and after listening to Mr. Clark at our last meeting, there's just no question about it. It's the prudent thing to do. I don't agree with what the courier did with thumbs down on Falls. Now, on September 22nd, I sent you, Mr. Chairman, a note with the letter that I sent to our representative, Mr. Galloway, about what I thought the legislature ought to do to close a gap. And Mr. Snipes, there is a gap there now that wasn't there previous to this. And the Senate Judiciary Committee, the chairman there is Stuart Greenleaf, and he expects to have a vote by the end of this year from the legislature on a registry bill. Now, my suggestion to the chairman was that to ensure this happens, knowing that our legislator doesn't always act promptly, and I think it would be helpful if our board, along with the other township boards, prompted our legislators in Harrisburg to act promptly on this legislation. And I think that should include, I would like to see it include, a suggested bill, a draft, something maybe similar to what I had sent you, Mr. Chairman, and something that would legally unleash hell on these sexual predators. So I think you ought to consider doing that.
Okay.
And getting in touch with our other townships and build a fire under some of these reps.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions? See no hands. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so this ordinance would be 11-8, correct? All right, and this would be repealing the sex offender residency restrictions. Is there a motion to approve ordinance or to adopt ordinance 11-8?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, motion is made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next item on the agenda is another ordinance, another repeal of a part of our ordinance. This is repeal Chapter 209, Section 92, Complaints of Violations. Mr. Gray?
Yes, the board is asked to consider authorizing the repeal of Chapter 209, Section 92, Complaints of Violations. This was brought before the board for authorization to advertise on October 18th. Currently, Chapter 209, Section 92 requires the zoning officer to report the results of investigations related to any complaints of violations of Chapter 209 to the complainant, the township manager, and the Board of Supervisors. The board is asked to consider repealing Chapter 209, Section 92 at this time.
Okay, part of the reasoning for this, we already have as a policy for our code enforcement officers that if there's a complaint that's filed, that they are supposed to touch base with the people that complained if they can. Some complaints are anonymous, and so you can't get in touch with anybody. But just to let them know the outcome of the complaint. Unfortunately, we've had some people that have sort of abused this, having some personal issues with some of our employees and making constant complaints, overwhelming numbers of complaints, and then complaining when the code officer doesn't reply in due time, and it's getting to the point where it's almost very, very difficult for some of our people to actually just do their jobs. And so that's one of the reasons why we're doing this. Unfortunately, not everybody behaves the way they should. So That's the kind of reasoning and history behind this. This is something that Mr. Bennett is aware of and obviously in favor of.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
No, I have none at this time.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No.
Mr. Dents?
None.
I have none. Is there any public comment needed? See no hands. All right, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 09-11?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 8, consider T&M proposal for engineering services for the Three Arches building renovations. Mr. Gray?
Excuse me, Chairman Harvey, on that last ordinance number, was that 11-9?
9.
9, okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're looking at Three Arches building renovations.
Yes. Township received a memo from Jim Sullivan at T&M concerning Three Arches historic building renovations. The renovation of the building would include purchasing and installing new shutters on the building windows and construct repairs to the front walkway and patio paver area and the rear walkway and patio paver area in that area as well. T&M Associates is prepared to proceed with the design phase of the renovation project for $7,000. The board is asked to consider this proposal.
Okay. And part of the money, about $4,000, is for the engineering and inspection services. About $3,000 is because of the architecture. This being a historic building, we need to bring people in that know the historic nature and can give us some advice on the actual work that needs to be done, doing it in a way that maintains the character of the building. Three Arches is going to be 300 years old, 300 years old, I believe, next year, 2012. And I know there's been planning, sort of a celebration of that, the history of that building, and so they're trying to make it, bring it up to the best condition it can be. Comments or questions from board members for Mr. Sullivan, or Mr. Gray, I guess. Mr. Zupka?
No, none.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Just a reminder that we wouldn't have Three Arches if I hadn't sued Dan Hurst for it.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, we had budgeted for this, correct?
Yes, we did.
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
This is something we've been talking about for quite some time, and it's good to see it finally getting done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the issues, especially the front walkway, has been in bad shape for a little while now, for quite a while now, and so it's work that needs to be done. And the shutters, we actually have some of them here because they've fallen off the building, and they're really rotted all the way through. So they need to be done, and it can't just be shutters you buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. These have to be historically accurate shutters. You don't want to, put something, kind of cheap on a building that's really kind of a jewel in our community. That's the board comment. Any public comment? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion then to award the engineering inspection and architectural consultation services to T&M for the Three Arches building renovations in the amount not to exceed $7,000?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, item number 9, consider T&M proposal for engineering services for the 2012 road program. We saw some of this in the budget, the roads that are being done, some 12 full-depth reconstructions, as well as 8 mill and overlay projects. Mr. Gray, you want to go ahead and run us through this, and then Mr. Sullivan, I guess, will field some questions.
Yes, the township did receive a proposal from Mr. Sullivan at T&M for professional engineering services for the 2012 Falls Township Road Improvement Program. The full-depth road reconstruction would be for 12 roads and a mill and overlay for 8 roads. As mentioned earlier, the full-depth road reconstruction roads include Winding Way, Vernon Road, Louise Drive, Kent Avenue, Paul Road, Mark Drive, Rita Drive, Hedgerow Drive, Lyons Drive, Midway Drive, Hedgerow Turn, and Hilltop Drive. The roadways scheduled for mill and overlay include West Tyburn Road, Main Street, Williamson Avenue, Old Locust Street, Lacrosse Street, Headley Place, Hillside Lane, and Valley Road. Engineering cost for this project is $676,088. The board is asked to consider this proposal from T&M.
All All right, thank you. And I know this was, it's come up as an issue about whether or not to do this much road work, all next year, but whether we do some of these roads next year and some the year after, or if we do them all next year, the engineering work still needs to be done. And so, we can still, even if we decide not to do all of these roads next year, we can still do the engineering now, and that way the engineering is done for whenever we do choose to do the roads. The engineering is not going to change. Mr. Sullivan, any comments or questions? Anything you want to add on to?
There's a couple elements in this road program that aren't specifically called out in what roads we're working on. There's also a couple of storm drainage problems identified by Mr. Arneo that we're going to correct as part of this. There's a couple of pipes that need to be removed and abandoned and new pipes installed. And we're also going to do a fair amount of televising of most of the storm drains in both Yardley Farms and Hedgerow Woods. Do the entire neighborhood so that whatever stormwater we design here will complement what goes on in the next couple of years over there as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Mr. Sullivan, do we still have problems in Thorn Ridge in the low-lying streets with flooding? Because the idea that, the engineering doesn't change, but roads do change, and they can change drastically in 1 year. I've seen it happen. And Thorn Ridge is the section that comes to mind because the part on New Falls Road sits high, and the water drains down to the lower streets. And we have had serious problems in past years down there.
I'm not aware of any serious flooding issues on the roads. I mean, the ditches down there have their issues and need to be maintained, or we can get flooding, but I don't think there's any problems with the road work.
Evidently, then, what was done is working, because it was a real
That is
problem
correct.
to the citizens.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
No.
Okay, and I have none. Public comment, any public comment needed? See no hands. All right then, is there a motion to award the proposal for Professional Engineering Services 2012 Falls Township Road Improvement Program to T&M in the amount not to exceed $676,088?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
What's the number?
$676,088. Motion is made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, we're looking at public comment. 5-minute limit per person, 45-minute maximum. First name on the list is Rowan Kenny.
Good evening, Roland Kenny, Falls Township. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Dents. He was out. I told you last time at Penn Manor that Mr. Whiteman, Robert Whiteman, the FBI agent that recovered all our stolen articles and everything. And also, I want to apologize to John Galloway. He was there. And I didn't have no time to talk to him because I promised the wife I would take her out, so had to go home quick. That was a very nice budget, young man. You guys did a nice job there. We had elections. I want to congratulate the winners and those that even tried.
Mr. Kenny,
Yeah.
I'm so happy I didn't win. I
So
didn't
am I.
try.
So am I.
I'm
happy I
glad.
didn't win.
I'm glad, Mr. Kenny, because if you and I agreed, I'd have to reevaluate my situation.
A lot of people don't know what voting is, and they don't think their votes count.
Well,
Just
the school board is in different hands, Mr.
Yeah.
Kenny, and
Yep.
you might stretch your imagination a bit to realize that I had something to do with that.
I know.
Well, I didn't wish to be elected myself.
All right, Mr. Kenny, go ahead.
Okay. And just for instance, in 1776, one vote gave America the English language rather than German. In 1800, Thomas Jefferson defeated John Adams by one vote. In 1845, Texas became a state by one vote. 1941, one vote saved selection service just weeks before Pearl Harbor was attacked. 1948, Lyndon Johnson became a senator by one vote. This just to show people your one vote counts. So when you have elections here in this township or anywhere, get out and vote, because you have no one to blame but yourself if you don't. Getting back to Penn Manor, December 1, December 2 is Holly Night. If you get a chance, get out there and see that. Everything's done up by candles. The roads, we light the roads up by candles all over the place, nothing but candles. It's a beautiful setting. I think it starts at 5:30. So I hope to see some of you there. I won't hold you up no longer. Good night. God bless you.
Mr. Kenny, thank you for reading my newsletter. You read that one vote right out of my newsletter. Every word was in there.
I didn't read your newsletter.
Well, let me tell you, it's here on page 44, so I thank you for reminding the people that one vote is important.
Andrew Dell?
Remember, we agreed.
Almost.
Okay.
I don't know if Mr. Gray got a chance to look at those trees I'd mentioned on Tyburn Road. I know you wrote down that you were going to go take a look at those. I didn't know if you ever got a chance to look at them or not.
Yes, we did identify the trees, the property owners, so several of the trees are township-owned. We are going to look into what specific properties are ours and see if we can take care of that situation, and we're also going to see if we can contact the homeowner as well that's right along Tyburn Road.
Okay. Do we got to give Mr. Sullivan some more money to do that, or is he good for tonight? Okay. Also, I wanted to congratulate the two new supervisor winners. I lost the race, obviously. Well, they're not here. I'd like to thank them. And it was a good race, good clean race, and I wish them the best of luck. And that's about it. I just want to make sure that the trees were taken care of, because they're, again, we should have a pretty harsh winter this year. Very good possibility you're going to see a lot more trees dropping. It's been a bad year for trees coming down. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you. A little tough to read the next name. Is it Jerry Thompson? No? Okay. Ed Mathias?
Good evening. Ed Mathias, Falls Township resident. Here for a couple things. One, leaf cleanup. I know we have trucks that come around and pick the leaves up. I think it's 3 times a year. Is it possible to get a leaf dump in Falls where people can take leaves? I mean, bagging leaves is pain in the backside, and not to mention expensive buying the bags and the time where there's a lot of people who have trucks, whatever, trailers, they can just load the leaves up and dump them. I know Marsville has it. A lot of the surrounding townships have them. It might make it easier on residents. There's some days, it rains, you can't get the leaves out or raked up or whatever. And, it can be a bit of a hassle just to make things easy on, the residents themselves.
Right. I know there's a bulk disposal day, and I'm trying to think of when it was. It was just recently, at least one bulk disposal day. Was it one in the spring too, or just one in the fall? Where you can take, it's anybody who's a Falls or Town resident can take whatever they want.
No, I'm just talking about the leaves.
But I know, the leaves included. You can take anything you want, throw it in the back of the truck, and you take it to waste composting. But that's one time a year, and it was late September, early October, I think, something like that.
It was like a month and a half.
Yeah, it's a little bit before the leaves fell. But in terms of, you talk about like a township-operated site?
Yeah, Marsville has one. I know Lower Makefield does. A lot of them do. They just have an area where the residents can go and.
Right. I know
you got to
we've-
show, residency proof, but.
Right. Yeah, I know we've talked about doing that, and we've talked to Mr. Arneo about doing that, and sometimes this time of year, usually someone brings up the idea of having one of the vacuums go around and suck up leaves, and it's a manpower issue. And also, I know Mr. Arneo is concerned about where you're going to put it and having someone there to monitor who's dropping it off and obviously turning that leaf pile over and over again so it doesn't just, so it becomes compost, et cetera. Mr. Gray?
Yes, that's correct. In addition, we would have to purchase the vehicles to pick up all the leaves.
Well, he's talking mostly just about the dump, not so much about the vacuum, but something just about a place to have it.
Yeah, if we had that, it would be difficult to set up, and like you said, the manpower to churn the leaves, et cetera, would be
Yeah,
costly.
I mean, we have the three collections, and I was going to mention them later on. I'll mention them now since you brought it up. One is this Saturday, and one is the 3rd of December, where you put out as many as you want, leaves as you want, in bags and cans, and Waste Management collects them free of charge. And there was another date, I think it was the 4th or 5th or something of November. It was the other
November
Saturday.
5th, 19th, and then the
Right.
first.
So we do have those 3 dates where you can get out, spread out over, a month, basically, where you can put out as many leaves as you want. And it's still, obviously, even if you're going to put them in your truck, you still had to gather them up. So here you're gathering them, leaving them. That's what I've been doing the past couple of weeks, just getting ready to put them out this Saturday.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just, when you ride down the streets too, there's people to put them out,
Mhm.
and it looks kind of crappy when you ride around, but, no, I know they pick them up, but, there's people that, work, they don't have the time to do it, could rain and they'll miss one day, and then,
Right.
Then you get some people who, just let their leaves blow in, the next yard and stuff, but, I guess I know a lot of the other townships has them, and it seems like it works, really well. And, it's something, we might want to think of doing, or, if possible. And I know Marsville has it, and they don't have theirs manned.
Right.
They just have a gate they open and close,
Mhm.
in the morning, close it at night. And I think they have like a front-end loader goes there every so often. They just load them up, and I don't know where they take them. I guess they take them to the dump or whatever, but
Mhm.
leaves can't be too hard to get rid of,
Right.
But my biggest reason for being here tonight, I'm involved with a lot of, coaching, football, baseball. Right now, I'm involved with the Lower Bucks Flag Football Association. We had a tournament down at the park that went really well. The reason I was here was we have about 150, 250 kids in the league from, this area, a lot of them from Falls. What we're looking to do is try to get some money to do some things that we can't, do ourselves. Only, we're limited to a lot of stuff. Right now, we practice behind, or play behind Emerson School on Mill Creek Road. I don't know if it was a possibility that we could, like have our games at the park. I know you have the soccer and stuff there. We usually play on Sunday. Basically, the games go from, they have adult leagues and then kid leagues. But what we're trying to do is, it seems like every year we're getting more kids. We're trying to basically make it better for the kids. Right now it's tough because, we just set up a little tent, have snacks and all that stuff they can get. We're trying to make something that's more permanent, make it easier on the people who run the league. There's about 8 of us that, run it. I do, a little bit, but, I do most coaching and stuff. But there are people that, spend a lot of time in it. It seems like every time, we get something to, try to do something, the money get used on something else. A lot of the kids, do pretty good. We have a tournament team that, we travel around. We went to Boston this year. We played in Wells Fargo Center. We just played at the Raven Stadium last Sunday. We pretty much won all those tournaments. The Raven tournament we won, so now the kids get to go to Florida and play in middle of January. And this is all the stuff that, we try to make it easier on them. Now, it is through the NFL. They do help out, with it, but, there's still a lot of expenses that we incur, and, it's hard to meet them all. We have fundraisers, but again, with the, with the economy, it's tough. Nobody wants to buy nothing or, spend any money. And, I know you guys have been in the past, you're really involved and, like helping the kids out and stuff. And, I'm here to ask if, there's anything that, you could do for us.
What kind of money are you looking for?
Anything really. We're trying to, get like either a portable stand or something where.
What gets you through 1 year?
It's hard to say because it's always different.
Well, pick the highest figure.
I mean, we were, you know, kicking around numbers for, you know, getting like a concession stand, you know, that was like, I think $5,000 or $6,000 for that. But like I said, that, and plus just trying to find like a permanent place where, like the Falls Park, where they have the bathrooms. Like where we play now, there's no bathrooms, and you know, it's a big family thing. The families come, they bring their, you know, younger kids. I mean, they have playground stuff there, but it's all the older stuff. Where, you know, if we went down to, you know, the park, we, you know, you have all the current stuff down there, and you know.
Is there nothing down there now?
Where's that?
Where, the field that you're using?
Yeah, there is, but it's all like, you know, the old iron monkey bars and, you know, nothing that's updated, you know, stuff where kids can get hurt very easily. And
What would it take to bring it up to snuff?
like I said, the biggest thing we're trying to do is, you know, get the concession, you know, the concession going and all that. It all depends on how far we want to go, but, you know, it's...
How many kids play?
We have
You're talking Babe Ruth?
No, this is flag football, but it goes ages from 4 to...
Okay, you're doing football.
Yeah, it's two
Okay.
leagues, one in the spring, one in the summer.
I associate you with baseball in
I
the
do that.
Challenger field.
Yes, I do that, and I do both, the football and the baseball in the spring, and our T-ball season just ended, so...
How many kids?
Right now, there's around 200. It could be anywhere from 150 to 250 kids. You know, it's quite a bit. You know, there's a lot of kids involved in this, and it's, you know, it's a good program. You know, the people that run it, you know, are really dedicated, and you know, it's like I said, with the economy, it's really tough just to, you know, keep things going for them.
Well, I have found you to be one of the most sincere, unselfish, hardworking volunteers for kids in this entire community, and I'm prepared to support you. We use money for everything else, and I will make a motion tonight, and I'll have a figure in mind.
Thank you.
Well, let's back up for a second. I mean, you're talking about running a concession stand. I mean, obviously, we have a concession stand that you can use at the Township Park. It's just a matter of scheduling with Mr. Reese. I mean, soccer's coming to an end now.
Yeah, well, like our season ends next month, or I'm sorry, next week. I did mention something to Mr. Reese about that, and he was kind of, the way he said it was, I mean, we want something that we can try to leave permanent, where we can leave our stuff there and not have to pick it up and come back, pick it up and come back.
Well, I mean, for the most part, that's what, generally, that's what happens. People that use it, I mean, and even the Quaker Penn Park, there's a field there, and there's a covered pavilion. I think there's even like one of the portable grills set up. You could even grill stuff there. I mean, so we do have facilities where if you're looking just to, you know, sell things, certainly you can do that. I mean, obviously, we can't, I mean, there are a lot of leagues that use, you know, the community park. I mean, there's a rugby league, there's a soccer league, there's lacrosse, there's everything else. And so obviously it's tough to sort of have storage for everybody. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people have to sort of, you know, share what they're, and do what they're, share what they're doing, and share their supplies and everything else. I mean, you know, I'm glad to see the league is doing well. I know we've talked about having, you know, a football league here in Falls Township. People have asked me about it for a while, so I'm glad to see that there's some progress being made.
And it's nice too, because I mean, there's a lot of kids that can't play tackle. You know,
right.
And this is, I mean, it's perfect for them. I mean, my 4-year-old grandson plays, and you know, he has a ball with it, and it's just, you know, it's something that, you know, I will play tackle my whole life, so you know, I heard flag, I wasn't, but now that I'm involved in it is, and like I said, the kids go pretty far. You know, it's like the probably 5th year that we've gone to Florida, so it's you know, it's a big thing. So,
Mr. Mathias, it was your appearance here that got the Challenger field going, and there's not a doubt in my mind. And when you link together the chronology of it, that happens to be a fact. I'm writing about it now. And I am going to support this, and I might as well start it with a motion, because I've never failed to do something for kids. I don't like what we do with our money most of the time. We've got a boat ramp down there that's not usable. 79 people signed up when I checked on it. 79 people. We spent over $1 million. And we're spending something like $500 a month. I haven't seen a real figure yet for a telephone down there, but anybody who has a boat ought to be able to afford a cell phone at Walmart for about 20 or 30 bucks. And we wouldn't have to do that. We could give that money to kids.
I don't know.
And then we're going to do Biles Island, and we're going to do a marina over there. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm prepared to start you with money right now, and I'm going to make a motion to donate $20,000 to your team. And I hope we have someone on this board that will second it.
Mr. Mathias, and we've been criticized before for putting the cart before the horse. Quite frankly, we don't have a lot of information about your league. We don't know what your budget is. We don't know. We're assuming that you're a 501c3. We don't know that for sure. This board, and quite honestly, can't give you anything until we have that documentation.
That's fine.
And I hope you understand that we
Yeah.
just can't be throwing money around. I mean,
Hang in there, we throw money around, trust me.
When the
I'm going to show that
when
tonight.
the USO was here, obviously that's an established organization, it has been for most of a century. This is obviously an issue you're coming to us with, we haven't heard it before.
Yes.
And so you're hitting us a little bit out of the blue. I still think, your issue in terms of setting up a concession stand, I think we have facilities where that can be done.
I mean, that would be great, but when I was talking to Mr. Reese about it
Well, we
before,
can-
I kind of got the impression that, he didn't want us to use it. Not that he didn't come out and say it, but just,
Right.
I don't think it would be a big problem for us to, go back and forth with our stuff, but, it's like I said, it's just like now it's, when it gets cold out there, under a tent, you know what I mean? And it's,
Yeah, the facility, the concession stand we have now does have a storage issue. I mean, there's just a lack of storage, and it's been like that since it was built. There's not much, that's something, sometime down the line, possibly we can look to expand that. But what I'd like to do, I'm going to ask Mr. Gray to have a conversation with Mr. Reese and have Mr. Reese get in touch with you and see if we can work out a schedule that's where you can fit in. Like I said, too, with the Quaker Penn Park, where there's a field that isn't used very much, there is a covered pavilion there where you can certainly set up a stand of some kind. You can't really do much cooking unless you want to sort of, bring a generator or a little, stove of some kind. More difficult, but it's still, there are facilities you could use, just a matter of scheduling them. In the meantime, if you, have documentation you can provide at any time to Mr. Gray just about your organization,
Sure.
In terms of being a 501c3, that would open up a little bit more ability for us to do something.
Okay.
Okay, but I appreciate you coming out.
Mr. Mathias,
We'll take
I'm
it from
sorry.
there.
Are you
So-
finished?
Yes.
Mr. Mathias, I've heard that before, you have too. And you're standing there and you're saying, okay, but you know darn right well, if you don't dig your heels in, and if we don't get a motion tonight, this is for kids. Now, we've done for dogs, we've done skateboards, we've done for boaters, we've done for everything. We can do this for kids, and all it takes is two other members of this board who love kids as much as I do, and you've got your starting fund. There's not a doubt in my mind that you'll be frugal with spending the money. You're not some fly-by-night that came in here from Jabip somewhere.
No.
You are an established, honorable person in this community. You have devoted your life to taking care of young people and guiding them. And I do believe that we owe it to you to look after those individuals whom you're trying to help. Now, if you walk away from here, I want to remind you that I'm leaving this board.
Yes,
And you're not going to have an advocate on the board unless they declare themselves tonight. And I've heard that kind of talk before, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Well, I don't know who made Mr. Reese God around here, but I certainly did not. And he's living at 3 Arches, a property which I saved. And I have not had any say in how the money that I brought in is spent. Now, I'm going to take care of that after I leave the board, because there is still a lawsuit and depositions for some of the things that have happened around here, and I've carefully documented them. So it goes on and on. But you've got to do what you did for the Challenger Field, or it's not going to happen.
No, I will.
And I'm going to make that motion before we rest this subject. If these board members think that boat ramps and all the other kinds of things we've spent money on are more important than children, then let it be part of the record. But I just believe that we need to declare ourselves tonight. Now, don't step away. I'm going to make a motion if the board members are finished talking.
You've
Can I
made a
just bring
motion.
these up? I just wanted to show you.
You've made a motion already, Mrs. Kozlowski. Is there a second to Mrs. Kozlowski's motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to spend $20,000. What's the name of your league again, Mr. Mathias?
Lower Bucks Flag Football.
Lower Bucks Flag Football.
May I see it?
Very nice.
Thank you. And I thank you for coming.
All right, so comments or questions from board members regarding this motion by Mrs. Kozlowski. Mr. Zupka?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, what's Mr. Zupka first? Sorry.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Snipes, go ahead.
Excuse me, no, I was just going to say that you asked for some basic information about the league, which I think we should get. I don't imagine anybody here is not supportive of what you're doing and wanting to support the league. Sounds like we need some background information, then we could move forward from there.
That's not a
And I
problem.
think a conversation with Mr. Reese will help in terms of use of our present facilities as well.
Mr. Dents?
I agree completely.
Mr. Zupka?
You're left out in the cold.
No, I've made I seconded it.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
No.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Snipes?
No.
Like I said.
I
we-
brought this.
we
It's
can't-
been in my briefcase
we can't-
forever.
we can't do it.
Harvey
We
took
don't
the credit for your Challenger field.
Yes, I'm
There's
sure.
his picture. You don't exist.
Not my field, it's a kid's field.
I know.
Thank you, Mr. Mathias. You're right.
But,
Well,
yeah,
Mr.
that's-
Mathias, if that's how you feel, and you don't care enough to fight for this, and you want credit to go to the individuals who did nothing,
I don't, it's,
Then-
you know how I feel about that.
All right, Mrs. Kozlowski, you're the next name on the list. Thank you, Mr. Mathias.
great.
Ms. Mathias, there's the photograph if you wanted this. Thank you.
May I keep it for my book?
Mr. Harvey, I've asked Mr. Gray to contact Mr. Mathias and to schedule a meeting so Mr. Mathias can provide all the documentation that will be needed to satisfy the three of you. So Mr. Gray will be in touch with Mr. Mathias in the next day or so.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mrs. Kozlowski.
Well, there are a lot of subjects that I'd like to discuss, and I have 5 minutes, but I want to remind people that there is board comment where I usually manage to get the main points done. I do want to say that this morning on the radio and all day long, they were beeping the problems with Rhode Island, our tiniest little state. $9 billion in pension deficit, $9 million. They have to find $3 billion. Did I say million? Please, let me correct it. $9 billion. They have to find $3 billion before the end of the year. They can't fund their pensions. Now, I raised the issue of our police pension, which is underfunded, and I'm very concerned about that, because it isn't just this country and the Obama Democrats and all the other garbage that has taken place. It is the entire continent. And would you please be quiet back there? If you want to make public comments, sign up for it. But don't be sitting back there jeering. You're the people that make the problems in this community. Now, we have the world going crazy. You saw what happened in Italy. France is in trouble. We have so many countries that are in trouble. And we act like it can't happen to us. My motive in negotiating those contracts with Waste Management, and incidentally, I brought my deed tonight. I didn't notice that I had to give my house. Nobody's calling me a liar these days because they know I have the documentation that I brought every one of those millions in, and these fellows up here weren't even a burp on the radar screen when it happened. And I've got the documentation, and we're going to go to court for defamation. There's no doubt about it, because I've been called a liar by the solicitor and by Mr. Harvey every time I lay claim to that. And I was mute about it for a number of years. The first contract was done in my dining room, and I didn't take credit for it. Nothing was said about it until they started to waste the money. Tullytown gives $5,000 a year to their people. They're talking about $6,000 a year now. I'll tell you what's happening to our money. We had $32 million after we paid our debt. We had a huge $32 million debt in '95 before I negotiated that contract. And the two supervisors who came on then promised that they would match the debt and have $32 million in the black for us, and that was the beautiful start. It's 16 years later, and I heard Mr. Harvey say, we have $32 million in our long-term savings. And I thought, what? $32 million now? 16 years later, we started with the first contract, the $95 million contract, with $32 million. What happened to it? And having had the heart attack, I had time to go through papers. And I went through as many as I had, but I found that I didn't have the vital information. And I kept asking for it from January of this year until now. And I'm telling you that there was a meeting of some sort because I got a letter from the solicitor's office telling me that the Board of Supervisors had decided to hire a lawyer to see if or not I was entitled to those records. Now, if I'm not entitled to them as an elected official who came to this board by the largest number of votes they've had, then no one's entitled to records. So I wanted to know who was able to discuss those records. Mr. Dent said he did. If that I am came from our new auditor, I will write about that story. Anyhow, now we have problems because we are spending the interest from our long-term savings. That's what's happening to it. And my 5 minutes are up. Isn't that tragic? But tune in to the end of the meeting because I have a lot more to say on that subject. And nobody's calling me a liar tonight because the lawsuit is looming.
Those are all the names on the list. Any other people interested in speaking? See no hands. Okay. Next item on our agenda are the minutes from November 1st, 2011. Comments or questions on the minutes as presented? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
I'm going to vote no. Our minutes are woefully inadequate. They are incorrect. They are supposed to summarize exactly the action taken by this board. Thank God I have the tapes of the meetings, because if I used the minutes for the lawsuit, it would be ridiculous. The minutes don't tell you anything you need to know.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman. Excellent minutes once again, Mrs. Pullen. Thank you so much for your work.
Mr. Dents?
No.
And I have none. Just, well, actually, I'll just make a mention of something. The minutes as presented are about 10 and a half pages, single-spaced. They are narrative in form. It's not just simple bullets, who voted what the issue was.
They're
excuse me, I'm speaking.
Quantity, not quality.
I'm speaking.
No, but you're contradicting what I said, and it is a lie.
I'm allowed to do that, you know.
It is a lie.
Yes. Just to give you an idea, item 1 from that meeting was the certificate of appropriateness. Essentially, someone building a vinyl fence, someone who lived in the historic district. The minutes say, item 1, certificate of appropriateness, 35 Old Locust Street, tax parcel number, the vinyl fence. Manager Gray said the Historic Architecture Review Board approved this project on October 24th. This is for installation of a 4-foot-high aluminum wrought fence. The applicant is Eugene and Melody Fox. Member Kozlowski wanted to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 35 Old Locust for vinyl fence. Member Snipes seconded the motion. All board members were in favor. Something, an issue that took us probably took us less time to actually pass than it took for me to read
What
minutes.
does that prove? You haven't printed anything negative in your minutes since I came to this board 6 years ago. And all I have to do is show the tape and what really happened. The relevant things about the finances of this township.
Item 9.
And you will all get tarred and feathered.
I'm sure we will. Item 9, so that's fine. We'll move to something that you said that was negative. You say is not included. Actually, it is included. Item 9, consider finalizing award for the bid for the senior center. Manager Gray said the township received a letter from T&M Associates regarding the contractor CraftSource Incorporated for the senior center addition. CraftSource Incorporated has a sufficient record of reliability. They are able to justify award in accordance with the requirements of the Falls Township Code. Member Kozlowski said she was involved in a lawsuit to sue Danhurst to bring in the senior center. Member Kozlowski said the senior center is being haphazardly developed. You put people in the position of having to choose something that is not the best thing. Was a quote from you. The common sense is what is absent in all of your decisions. Another quote from you. We will run out of money, and it is happening soon. Another quote from you. Member Snipes moved to finalize awarding the bid to CraftSource for the senior center addition and site work. Member Dent seconded the motion. All board members were in favor, with the exception of Member Kozlowski, who voted no, 4-1.
Find
So-
somewhere in any of the minutes in 6 years that show that you brought a penny into this township. I have raised that issue each time you waste our money.
Right.
And that's never appeared in the minutes. I wonder why, Mr. Harvey. Who edits the minutes?
Nobody edits the minutes, Mrs.
The minutes are edited. They are false.
Okay. Any public comment on the minutes as presented? Didn't imagine there'd be any. All right, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented November 1st, 2011?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Absolutely not.
Engineers report for October 2011. It's dated November 10th, 2011. Mr. Sullivan, anything you want to touch on?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow morning, we're having our kickoff meeting for the senior center expansion. We'll be meeting with the board of the senior center, the contractor, to discuss logistics of how the project will proceed and keep the center open and occupied and in use at all times. The boat ramp docks are being removed, I believe, Thursday, Mr. Gray? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. They will be transported back to where we had them fabricated. There are some issues that have to be tweaked a little bit. We're going to add a rail on one side. And the 2010 road program, I think we have one puddle left, and then we'll be in the maintenance period.
Okay. All right, thank you. Comments or questions for Mr. Sullivan regarding the engineer's report? Mrs. Kozlowski? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Zupko?
None.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Excellent, Mr. Sullivan. You're the one fella that they hired that knows his job. That'll probably get you fired.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Dents?
No.
I have none. Any public comment needed? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion to approve the October 2011 engineering report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the bill list for November 15th, 2011. Bills in the amount of $2,222,385.35. Of that, about half of that $2.2 million is salary and health care benefits. Comments or questions regarding the bill list, Mr. Zupka?
No.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
I have a lot to say about the bill list. For 6 years, I have asked that the bills be separated so that I could vote for the salaries of our police officers, our staff who works in the building, even some that aren't doing their job, and other. I could pick and choose. But that wasn't done and has not been done. And let me tell you the method behind it. It's a political trick. They treat us like mushrooms. They treat the taxpayers like mushrooms. They keep them in the dark and cover them with manure. And that's what happens every time they filibuster. Now, proof of what I'm saying is that they took those minutes, they keep them all clumped together, forcing me to vote no, because I will not vote for stupid, foolish expenditures that waste our money. We're going to be like Rhode Island, and they think it can't happen. But it will happen because they haven't learned anything yet. Now, the bill list in their political literature said she doesn't even vote to send flowers whenever we have a staff member lose a loved one. She's just heartless, that Veslowski woman. She only just brought that money in, but she won't vote to spend any of it. Now, I had 4 siblings die during this 6-year term, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I didn't even know we send flowers, and I wouldn't have voted to send them to my brothers and sisters because I didn't know there was flowers on the list because we never got an acknowledgement, not even a sympathy card from these rascals up here or whoever's in charge of that, because I was blamed for not sending flowers to the people who lost loved ones. That's the kind of manure that gets spread all over everything they touch. They never brought a penny into this township. And I'd like to see that appear at least once in the minutes before I leave this board, which is December 31st, thank God. Now, I will write about it. I have the tapes. I know what was said, and I know what the facts are. And I think that it's reprehensible that they had the stupidity to send a letter to me and tell me that they're checking to see if legally I'm allowed to see the financial records for the investments of the money that I brought in. So I'm asking now, since our solicitor is the spokesperson for these people, when did you have a meeting to decide there should be some legal expert from your firm to decide whether or not I'm entitled to see financial records?
We didn't have a meeting. My office reviews all open record requests. You filed an open record request. All we said was there needed to be a legal review. It wasn't that you weren't entitled to these records.
I didn't get them all yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, why don't you let me answer, because you don't...
I'm letting you answer. You're going to answer in court when you're under oath.
Mr. Kozlowski, calm down. Mr. Clark, go ahead.
Put your gavel down, Harvey.
Mr. Kozlowski, you ask someone a question, be quiet so they can answer.
He
unless you don't like their answer, you don't want people to hear their answer.
I want them to hear their answer. If you would learn to park your tongue and allow the truth to come out in these meetings.
All of the records that Mrs. Kozlowski asked for were turned over.
No, they weren't.
The only legal review that was done was to see if we were required to or able to redact some of the information regarding account numbers and things along those lines. Because once that information leaves this building, if it gets into the wrong hands, we were concerned that people would have access to all of our account numbers and all of that information. That was the only legal review. I don't know what she's talking about when she says whether she was entitled to this.
That's the mushroom talk.
The letter that went out said that we were asking for the extension, as is permitted under the law, to complete the legal review. And you got every document you asked for.
Mr. Clark.
Sent to both of your houses.
We'll allow you to say that when you're under oath giving a deposition. But I'm not finished.
Yes, you are.
I am not finished.
Your comments are on the bill list. Your comments now are way off the bill list if they were ever on it to begin with.
They're relevant.
No.
They are relevant.
No, they're not.
He got, how much money did you get over budget this year? How much, because we're at least 175 or 200,000 in our legal, most of which went into your pocket for nonsense like that. And you didn't put in the letter that it was your firm that was hired. I thought that was interesting.
It was my letterhead.
It was your letterhead signed by some female I never heard of.
Some female.
You can tell it to the judge, honey. You can tell it to the judge.
Right.
All right,
Just like my law license, which you've been
Mr.
getting.
We're going to have it.
Mr. Clark, honestly, it's not worth it. It really isn't.
It's worth it.
not
It's
worth it.
fun.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
And the cackling geese back there in the corner,
All right, let's
and
focus,
their positions, we're
let's
dealing with you too.
Focus back on the bill list, which is what we're supposed to be focusing on. Mr. Snipes, comments or questions on the bill
No
list?
questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
No questions or
All
comments.
right. Any public comment needed? See no hands. I neglected to mention, by the way, I did mention about half of the bill list is for salaries and benefits. Another over $500,000 well over $500,000.
Chris, are you leaving?
Excuse me. Over $500,000 is for fire protection and the rescue squad. Is there a motion to pay the bills, $2,222,385.35?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
No.
Mrs. Wislowski?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, we are looking, we do not have a need for an executive session, correct? All right, so manager comment, Mr. Gray, you're up.
I have nothing tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing, really? Nothing? No out of the clown? No?
Not tonight.
No puppet pizzazz? No? All right. All right, board comment, Mrs. Wislowski? We'll start with you.
Why do you call me first? Always.
I don't always call you first.
Yes, you do,
No,
but
I
that's
don't.
okay. I'm a match for you, Mr. Harvey, because there's BS coming from you, MS, and PhD, piled higher and deeper. And you speak last, so you get to tell if there's a Tiddlywinks contest in the township.
Right.
But you don't address the fact that I offered my deed to my house, if you can show that I lied about bringing all those millions to this township, and I still own it. But I'll tell you what, when I win yours, I'll donate that to Operation Smile, too. And I hope the Philadelphia lawyer has a wealthy house, too, so I can donate that. Because you've called me a liar on the tapes. They're not in the minutes, but they're on the tapes, sir. You think you're doctoring stuff, and you're not. Now, I asked Mr. Dents at one meeting, and Jeff, I always have hope for you. I really do. I don't for these other guys, but I think deep down you have a caring for the taxpayers in this community. And I asked you about reading records, and you said that you did, but I didn't ask anything specific. But I'd like to ask you something tonight. It's easy to quiet me down and not have me criticized ever again if you will vote to permit me to ask someone who is a financial officer. And is there David Shaw here tonight?
He was here earlier.
Was he here?
You spoke.
David, before I came?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. He was a financial advisor down in Wells Fargo Bank, and he came out in the parking lot to introduce himself to me on Friday. And he said he read the newsletter twice, and he was thanking me for that newsletter because he could see the reasons for my concern. Now, none of us are trained in high finance and investments. None of us. We really, you need to get a license to drive a car, and we really all ought to have licenses to hold these public offices, because the people that take them sometime are dumb as dirt. And that's the problem. That's how townships get in trouble. That's how countries and counties get in trouble. Now, I think that we need to have someone come in and take a look. And I would like to propose that the fellow that Mr. Harvey accused me of trying to bring in here, there's no danger of that now. I don't have any votes. I'm not going to be on the board. But I'd like to have that man who manages Tullytown's funds, and they're doing so much better than we are. Jeff, they really are. If you dug into it, you almost have to have a heart attack to find the time to look at all these records, because a man who's working to support his family doesn't have the time to do it. I don't even have a job, but I spent so much of my time helping people in the last 47 years. And I never dug into the finances like I did since I had the heart attack and was housebound in Florida. And I started requesting the records. And I thought, holy mackerel, this doesn't make any sense. Now, I brought some of the records that I've gotten, and I'm not going to take the time in this meeting to do that. I'm not going to tell what I've seen. I'll write about it, But I'm making a suggestion here tonight. If there are 3 votes that will allow me to have some other financial investor take a look at what we're doing with our money and find out where the dike is leaking, because we are losing so much. I did find that we're spending all of our interest, which should be our nest egg for the future. And we're still down to the $32 million that we had when that first waste management contract was negotiated in my dining room. We only have that $32 million. We rob from the interest that that money earns over the last 15 or 16 years, and we balance the budget for all the crazy spending that's happening here. I knew instinctively that we had crazy spending, but I couldn't find out with certainty where that money was coming from. And I talked to George Fox over in Tullytown. I happened to be lucky enough to get a ride home from the Doylestown courthouse with him. And he was talking about their investments. And I thought, George, how do you know all this stuff? We don't hear that at our meeting. We don't have anybody coming and making financial reports to us so that we will understand. And so I've done it. I think that I'm making you feel uncomfortable, and I apologize to you for that by addressing you.
Directly to me, I'm sorry.
No, I am talking directly to you, Jeff, because you're the only one I have any respect for. And I'm telling you that I believe that if you permitted that individual, as soon as Mr. Harvey accused me of being in league with him, I didn't even know him. I showed you who I talked to. So anyhow, I called Ed Armstrong over, he's on Tullytown Council, and I said, give me the name of that fella that comes here, and I want to talk to him. And then I hooked up with him, and I said, you know, I need to understand the stuff. George Fox is so articulate in their finances, and I am not, and none of our board is. We don't know who's pulling the magic strings here in Falls. Now, we elected an auditor who can't add 1 and 1 and get 2, and that's going to be an interesting situation. I want to know why the auditor position isn't abolished, because our audits are done by professionals, but they don't tell us what we need to know. Jeff, we need to know. I'm leaving the board, so is Phil. And you're going to have 5 individuals who are homogenized. We elected a school teacher this time to join Harvey. Snipes is, well, I will write about Snipes. That's a whole special book. I have had, oh, that's wonderful, because he's going to have to find out about the Williams tract and about how Sam Snipes acquired the property and how the Snipes properties were tax-free while we were all paying our taxes. I like that giggle. He does it so nicely. And as a matter of fact, Jeff, my grandson is in the University of Shanghai now. He's studying to be a diplomat. He's like his angel grandmother, a diplomat. Never offends anyone, right? He's different, I can tell you. But he knows that we need to watch China, and the State Department sent him to the University of Shanghai. He sent this picture to me, ladies and gentlemen, and it has a message. I didn't discover it until I accidentally touched a certain part of the frame.
This message is for the Falls Township politicians. Someone needs to teach you some manners and respect for your elders.
Well said, John Michael. Now, he watched a tape, and he said, Grandma, I wish that I could come there and teach them the manners you taught me. Now, there's a lot more to say, but I'm going to ask for you to support me, and I'm going to ask Mr. Zupka to support bringing in somebody, preferably the guy that does Tullytown, because they're the only ones I know who have a landfill and who can understand the landfill stuff. Even though I negotiated those contracts, I did not know how to read the yield and the income and all that. And those are the records I've been trying to get. So I'm hoping that you will support the opportunity for some professional to take a look with an objective point of view. You don't ask the fox to guard the hen house, and you get someone else.
Quick comment. I know it's your board comment, but every month we get this magazine in the mail.
Yeah,
And this month there was an article on financially speaking.
yeah.
And it lists in a paragraph exactly, under law, townships may only put their money in certain types of investments. What are they is the question. And it goes into them right here in bullet points. The following investments are authorized by the codes governing local governments, municipal authorities, and school districts in Pennsylvania.
Then,
Copy, or do you want to write it down?
no, I got mine.
U.S. Treasury bills and notes is one. Short-term debt of highly rated federal agencies, such as the Federal Home Loan Bank, is the second one. The third one is appropriately collateralized certificates of deposit and time deposits in banks. And the last one is debt issued by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or a state agency.
Now you know the categories.
That's
Do
it.
you know the details?
What are the details that you know?
What are I'm telling you, we've
That we're limited
got
where we can invest our money.
$20 million invested in money market, and it's not earning us a dime. And there are legal alternatives. That's what I'm asking for. I'm being reasonable, Jeff. You didn't dig far enough, and I'm not faulting
I
you
just
for...
saw that this week when it came in the mail.
No, Jeff, I am guilty also of not digging and realizing that there are alternatives to those things, and I like to be educated. I don't like to be a mushroom. I like to know what's happening with our money because I see it declining. What harm is there if someone with a fresh eye takes a look and says, here's what we're doing with Tullytown. They have the same guidelines that we do. So what is wrong if that same fellow takes a look at ours and says, here's what we did in Tullytown. That's why they earned so much more money than Falls. You're not against that. I'm not against that. And I think anyone that is against it is being very foolish, because we need to know the yield for those monies that we have invested and find out if there's a better way. Certainly, I'm not going to condone something that breaks the law. For God's sake, I'm a retired judge. I'm certainly not going to do anything that is going to break the law. I'm asking that we comply with the law and take a look and see if we're investing our money intelligently. Are you with us or against us? I don't know. Phil, I haven't talked to you. Are you going to support that?
I'm not certain I'm supporting that tonight, no. It's something I would consider, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable doing it tonight.
Well, let me say this, then that is a good way to escape it for this reason. I have to have surgery in December. I'm not even sure whether this will be my last meeting. Therefore, your third vote goes in your opportunity to save Falls Township's money.
That's not true. That's not true. We can look at this, but we don't have to do this tonight. We can all discuss this together, or we can discuss this with the new board next year. Nothing we do tonight's going to make a difference in the next 2 months.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, because you have two people who are coming in green as grass. They don't know. They will listen to him. And that is, he doesn't even know parliamentary procedure. He said we have to vote the issue before we can vote on the motion to table. Even a third grader knows that. That's part of the minutes. It's on the tape. It's not in the written minutes, but it's on the tape. So that is the person who is running this township. Now, you're supposed to be running the township, and I am. All 5 of us are supposed to be doing it. So if this happens, that we don't do it tonight, then I can tell you this, and I'll bet you any amount of money or anything you want, that it will never happen. If it doesn't happen tonight, because this is the only time, I'm certain I'm going to be here for the balance of the year. I
I'm
think
not
when
doing it
the,
tonight, I'm not agreeing to it.
okay, then it will be Jeff Dents who
That's not
didn't
true.
want, yeah, it will be.
You can say whatever you want, but we're not.
No,
saying true.
I'm not,
Go ahead,
they own you, don't they, Jeff?
go ahead, keep it on. No, nobody owns me.
It's all right, Jeff. I've tried as reasonably as I could to explain. There is nothing for you to lose, and there's everything for you to gain if I'm right. There's everything for you to gain, and keep in mind, I've done more homework than any of the ones here. I'm ready to go with it. So that's it.
Okay. Mr. Snipes, comment, public comment or board comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also to staff of the township and our professionals for mostly a good meeting. We accomplished quite a bit. Also, for the recent elections, I want to congratulate Mr. Jeff Rocco and Mr. Brian Galloway, who were elected new members of this board. So we look forward to working with them, and any questions we have about our investments or our budget, which is in excellent shape, can certainly be handled by the new board. And I'm looking forward to us moving forward with that. So thank you. That's all for tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zupka?
Well, we've already had a slight snowstorm. We've had power outages, trees down, and now we have 70-degree weather. It's not even Thanksgiving yet, and we have ads for the Christmas sales, or they're already showing holiday shows on some of the cable channels. To me, it's just a little, I'll say, depressing. Maybe I'm just too old school. I think Christmas should be after Thanksgiving, not before. But anyway, Thanksgiving's coming up. Everybody, I always believe, be with your family. Have a great Thanksgiving. I'll see you next month. Bye.
Okay, Mr. Dents?
Yes, I was going to comment on the township news, which I already did. We had a semi-productive meeting. It was nice to finally get moving forward with the 3 arches renovations. I want to echo what Mr. Zupka said and wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And that's all I have.
Okay. A couple things. I'm not sure where Mr. Gray went. I guess he's in the back somewhere. A few things. I did receive in the mail from the Senior Center financial statement. They have a certified public accountant who took a look at their books, and they sent me a copy of the report by the CPAs who looked at the Senior Center's financial report. So I'll leave that here at the township. Anybody who's interested in taking a look at that can see that. I see Mr. Gray is back. A couple issues regarding finances, Mr. Gray. Some questions about how we've invested, and this has become sort of a topic to try and scare people over the past month or so. There are outside firms that take a look at the finances of the township. Is that correct? We have an auditor who makes a report every year.
Yes.
Okay. And are there also, Mrs. Vislowski?
Leave it in.
Mrs. Vislowski.
They came here to speak.
Mrs. Vislowski, I'm speaking to Mr. Gray right now, so you're interrupting a conversation.
Sorry, I did not know you were speaking with him.
Yes, I am.
I thought he was available to all board
No.
members, except when someone else has got him.
Right, I'm speaking to him at this moment. Thank you. In terms of the other investments, the actuarial things, are there other,
Yeah, we also have Thomas Anderson, who is our pension consultant for the police funds. Buyer Barber is our actuary. We also have SEI, and they manage our account there as well.
Okay, so
there's various people looking at our accounts.
All right, so is it safe to say that there are numerous financial companies, firms that have an objective look at our finances and have had an objective look at our finances pretty much since you've been here in 1999, 98? When did you
August 1999, yes.
Okay, so since that time, we've had firms that have looked over the finances of the township repeatedly. Okay.
Mr. Gray.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Gray, when you came on as a finance director in 1999, August of 1999, how much money was in a long-term restricted savings account?
In August 1999, zero.
Okay. All right, how much is in there now?
$32 million.
Right.
1990.
Thank you very much. Okay, the last comment I want to make tonight, just reminding people, I said this earlier, The leaf collection, there are 2 more dates remaining. This Saturday, leaf collection, November 19th. Okay. For anybody that wants to put their leaves out, I'm going to have a whole lot of bags and trash cans. Obviously, you can put the leaves out in bags, in the paper bags, or you can put it out in regular trash cans without lids. And the last date for free trash collection is December 3rd, also a Saturday. That's a little different this year. Usually it was sort of like the Friday or something after your recycling day, something like that, or day after your recycling day. So I actually missed the first day, which was November 5th. But if you have leaves to put out for collection, and I'm sure everybody does, you can put it out on either of those 2 dates on Saturday as much as you want, and the waste management trucks will come around and pick it up. I want to wish a belated, we said this before, but a belated Happy Veterans Day to all of the men and women who have served or are still serving our country, putting their lives on the line for us. And the holiday Christmas house decorating contest will begin pretty soon. We don't have the dates yet, but for people that want to decorate their houses, I think some people are already starting to try and bring in some of that Christmas cheer. That's something we'd like to do, is to recognize those people that's put out their time and energy, their creativity to make our township a little brighter. People driving by their houses and taking a look, and it helps, brings in the Christmas season. So that'll be coming up, and we'd like to award those people with different prizes just to thank them and make our township even better. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Gray, you wouldn't deny me the right to ask my manager a
Move to close the
question.
meeting.
All right, thank you. All in
Are
favor?
you denying me the right to ask him a question?
You've asked enough.